Hello. I finally looked up Shammy, and you guys are right. We are freakishly similar. I'm not gonna bother with a preamble. I know why you're here. You know why you're here. Let's fucking start this shit. But first, really quick, I want to mention something that I personally just find hilarious is that the people that I talked about in the last video started thinking that this game series was a parody, and then some of them got pissed off when the devs weren't treating it like a parody, or when they assumed that these games were made directed towards kids, and then got pissed off when the games have moments that are hard and act like they're not designed for kids to beat.
How is that obviously? Oh my god! Make your game easy! This game is directed towards kids, correct? Yeah? How do you expect them to beat this if you make it a goddamn Stevie Wonder simulator? I can't see a thing. That's really... wow.
Guys, what are we doing right now? Neither of the devs ever said that these games were made towards kids or that they were parodies. You just made the assumption and ran with it. Like, I'm just saying, there's a reason why I don't really take these people too seriously.
The life of an Opila bird is a life with an absolute beginning, middle, and end.
But that's enough throwing shade. I know now that the developers actually watch my videos, so I need to behave. I won't. Hi guys. And before we begin, it is my responsibility as a critic to disclose that I did receive Garten of Banban 7 for free. And gentlemen, seriously, you didn't have to do that. I would have been more than happy to pay for it, but thank you. It doesn't mean I'm gonna go easy on you. As I said in the last video, I'm gonna be comparing these games to the games that inspiration was more than likely drawn from, so like Poppy Playtime, Five Nights at Freddy's, Bendy and the Ink Machine, but I'm not gonna stop there. I'm gonna be comparing these games to games outside of this subgenre of horror, to games like Outlast, Resident Evil, Amnesia, Soma, and I'm doing this because I want to give examples of mechanics and horror elements that work really well in games that are very successful and talk about why they work. And I'm doing this for one very simple reason, and I'm not going to be holding back on anything for one very simple reason. I want you guys to be successful. I want you guys to get better. I want you guys to show me the games that I know you can make. You guys have the idea. You have the potential. And I think with a little time, a little effort, and a little feedback, I think you can make a pretty cool game. Now, Garten of Banban. Let's finally talk about these games. The gameplay, the mechanics, the horror parts, everything. And because 90% of this script was written before Chapter 7 was dropped, here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to proceed with the script which is in critique of games 2 through 6. And once I'm done with those, I'll tackle Chapter 7 in its own section. I'm doing this because Chapter 7 does make a number of improvements compared to the previous games, so I can't exactly lump it in with the critiques that I already wrote down, but I also can't exactly scrap those critiques because, well, the other games still exist. Chapter 7 doesn't make those things disappear, it just shows that the devs are improving, which is good. So, let's proceed with the critique of 2 through 6. With a lack of visual negative stimuli that you would normally get in horror games, the dark colors in rooms, the ambiance, the tension, the environment, that leaves only one place for any horror elements to be present, and that's the story. And with how the story is executed in these games, I can understand why people are missing it. But even understanding what the story is, it really isn't much of a spooky story. Now, don't get me wrong. It's certainly an idea that I am super interested in seeing where it goes, but it really feels like it's missing something to truly have that horror vibe in it. This would be more closely related to the tale of Frankenstein's monster, but since we don't have all of the games available at the moment, we don't have a full picture yet. But Bowie, what the fuck even is this story? I mean, it's so broken up, and even the wiki doesn't help because people just make shit up to fill in the gaps. I'm glad you asked. So far, I've identified 3 separate plot points, those being the story before the collapse, the story of the depths, and our story. The parent looking for his or her child. I haven't been able to figure out if we're a man or a woman yet. Anyway, we'll go about this in order, so the first thing we'll look at is the story as we know it before the collapse. Before we get into the story, we need to talk about and understand the element that's mentioned throughout the lore, Javanium. There are 2 types of Javanium, mixtures and pure Javanium. Of the mixtures, there are 5 types, yellow, red, purple, green, and blue, which you can see in Nabnalina's surgery room, though it would appear the green type is the most successful. Now, a mixture is a mix of Javanium and different genomes, usually human and animals. For example, Stinger Flynn is a mix of Javanium, human, and jellyfish. The maximum number of different genomes you can have in a mixture is 3. Exceed 3, and the mascot will take the most different genome out of the mixture and become a real animal. This is referred to as the genome cloy event. The creatures created with Javanium are called cases. A test case was created using a simple Javanium and human genome mixture injected into a soft clay-based body. But this procedure is not without its side effects when performed incorrectly, the most notable being immense enlarging of the body and veins. And any creature brought to life with Javanium is in constant, excruciating pain and will exhibit hostile and nervous behavior. Now that we know a bit about Javanium, let's continue. Admittedly, this is kind of a tough one to piece together because the only information I have available are whatever notes I find and events I witness, so environmental storytelling. I know the wiki exists, but I can't trust it because whenever there's something that's unexplained in the game, someone just makes shit up to fill in the gaps. I don't know how the hell this story starts. What I do know is the kindergarten is owned by some unknown people and it serves as a front while these experiments are happening deep beneath the stone of the school. A quirky new Banban's kindergarten, complete with a ball pit. So instead of giving myself a headache trying to find clues that aren't there, let's just jump straight into the information that we do have. We don't know why these creatures are being created, we don't know what the goal is, we don't know how the facility was built, and we don't know why the scientists or really any of the workers agreed to work down here. All we know is that they're trying to bring these creatures to life. Now gather around, let me tell you a tale. The first test conducted was attempting to create a circulatory blood system for the mascots since blood is needed for all other living things, but ultimately this left them with no results. Blood just was not working, which led to the creation of the element Javanium to act as a substitute for blood. The first Javanium-infused mascot moved an arm when the element was introduced as the circulatory system as opposed to blood, showing signs of progress. This is probably completely wrong, but I'm just going with the context that I had at the time. One of the first full living mascots created was Banban through the use of a simple human Javanium mixture. There is no animal genome that I am aware of. The hope being that doing this will give the mascots rational thoughts and parental instincts towards children. And the donor for good old Banban was none other than Dr. Dr. Uthman Adam. At first, it seemed the experiment went well. Banban displayed healthy intelligence, and he wasn't violent at all, and he behaved as a human, eating and drinking despite not needing to do so. Unlike other mascots created before him with human DNA, he retained memories that belonged to the donor. But then he started showing behavior they didn't account for. He believed he was human. He believed that he is Dr. Uthman Adam, and was incredibly confused as to why he was considered an experiment. And just like the cases before him, a side effect flared up. and Banban described an immense constant pain. And shortly after, a meeting between Dr. Adam and Banban was planned. At first, the meeting went well. They shook hands and everything was going fine, but then Dr. Adam started to explain everything to Banban, who became extremely violent and attempted to attack the doctor. Banban was subdued by security and placed in a solitary confinement area, where he would then refuse to speak to anyone except Dr. Waverly Mason, possibly due to her being Dr. Adam's friend. The meeting with Uthman and the confinement drove Banban into an unstable mental state, huddled in a corner of his cell. So the scientists created Bambalina in an attempt to help, using the DNA from the only person Banban would speak to, Dr. Mason. She was placed in his cell and Banban slowly approached and hugged her, then returned to his corner and resumed huddling there. In a final effort to solve the problem, they introduced a newly modified Javanium solution designed to limit self-thinking. But this caused another unexpected defect. Quote, with some grammatical correction, excruciating stomach pain so severe it fell on its knees while holding its stomach, before undergoing significant neurological changes, causing Case 6 to fall victim to the primitive instincts we were desperately trying to avoid. Case is not ready for presentation. The modified solution will be locked away, never to be used again. To this day, Banban continues to be confused by the circumstances, confused why his old co-workers suddenly look at him like he's a monster, and still refers to himself as Uthman, appearing to show no memory of the incident.
I'm Uthman. I worked here before everything came crashing down, literally and figuratively. I can't imagine the stuff you've witnessed down here. My co-workers and I should have spoken up sooner. Perhaps all of this should have been prevented then. But then again, my co-workers weren't really friends in those last couple of months anyway, so would have needed some good planning. You ever had those friends that suddenly turn on you for no reason? To say mine turned on me would be an understatement. They suddenly stopped talking to me. They looked at me like I was some sort of monster. Sometimes I lose my temper, sure, but it seemed excessive. I was and still am confused, to say the least.
However, there was another problem. There was to be an event at the kindergarten on the surface, Bring a Friend Day, where the mascots they were working on would be revealed to the children and parents. But if the mascots are in this kind of pain and become hostile, they'll never be suitable for presentation. So their work had only just begun. Over time, they experimented with different animal genomes to create different mascots, hoping to get one that would be friendly and docile enough to have around children. Spider gave Nab-Nab, Snail gave Celine, Ostrich and Flamingo gave us the birds, Frog gave Toadster, you get the idea. But then there were some developments. Uthman started making case after case after case, spending countless resources in Javanium to do it in order to finally get a creation that doesn't show side effects, doesn't display any signs of pain, and doesn't turn hostile. It took up to Case 12, created with the woolly spider monkey DNA, to find a case that did not display any of the concerning side effects, and that would be good old Captain Fiddles. But even that wasn't without its issues. It took 8 failed attempts to finally get the one that worked, Captain Fiddles himself. And unfortunately, management took notice of this and sent him a letter. He can now only keep 6 active mascots, quote, again with correction. This is especially the case considering the amount of resources that have been wasted with very, very slow progress. And after the misunderstanding with Case 12 and its subcases, which cost us fortunes. We're talking 1 presentable case out of 10 in months. The customers are getting upset because we are not delivering what we promised, and getting sued right now is not in our best interest. As much as we would like it to be the case, Javanium doesn't grow on trees, and our friends down south can only get so much. We understand this might not be the news you wanted to hear, but this is how it has to be. Use what you have left very carefully, and see if you can have more presentable cases before the upcoming Bring a Friend Day. So now there is an apparent deadline for Uthman and Waverly to create presentable mascots for the Bring a Friend Day. They have too many experiments that are not suitable for presentation and therefore must cease development on them, so they can focus on getting at least 6 of them to a presentable state. Because of this, they decide to drop Nab-Nab, Toadster, and Celine and keep Banban, Banbalina, Captain Fiddles, Opilabird, Jumbo Josh, and Stinger Flynn in an effort to turn their failures around by making the 6 they keep be successful. In fact, they need to, if they hope to keep their basement experiments a secret. They, Uthman and Waverly, are trying to take one of them out and give them a better life. These 2 cannot have children, so why not just take one of their creations? But no one can know about it. It's a miracle that management has left these lower floors the way they are. There's too many opportunities for people who have been denied the beautiful gift of raising children, just like ourselves. It's the perfect plan. If they can't have a kid, might as well make one. But they need a suitable genome donor, a child. But where would they get something like that? Well, as it happens, there's a whole kindergarten up there filled with children. Surely one of the ones that enrolled will do, but it needs to be a joint decision. I've collected the data of all the children currently enrolled in the kindergarten and left them at your desk. I've marked my preferred genome donors, and you do the same on your sheet. We can then exclude any students that aren't marked by the both of us, and then from the smaller pool of candidates, we pick one to proceed with. They just need an opportunity to get the genome from the kid in order to proceed with their plan. They already picked a creation, but it's incomplete. They need another genome, a child's. But it's taken a long time, so they have to do what they can to keep him happy. There's a lot of scrap materials around. We'll make some friends to keep him happy. But that would be a problem for later because now management has taken notice of the failed cases. So, the 3 that were dropped were moved to the lower levels. Now, Bring a Friend Day is just around the corner and only one mascot is suitable for presentation, Captain Fiddles. At least I think that's the case. I don't actually know if he was the only one. Now, only having one suitable case for the event is pretty bad, but that's not the only thing going wrong. So, Uthman and Waverly. One of them tells the other that they reviewed the architecture of the ball pit and made a horrifying discovery. Quote, "This is bad. This is very bad. I just revised the architecture behind the ball pit and it's a miracle this thing hasn't collapsed yet. The thing can barely support the amount of children we have enrolled in the kindergarten. We're having double that tomorrow. Something really bad is going to happen and we need to be as far away from here as humanly possible when it does. We've been on the bad side of the wrong people for a long time. And if we're still here when everything goes down, it will be the end of us both. If not at the hands of angry parents, then at the hands of our superiors. Do not bring anyone's attention to this matter unless you wish us both a big involuntary dive into the abyss. A place like this should not exist. The stuff we've witnessed here should not exist. The casualties that will result from this catastrophe will only serve the greater good, which is shutting this place down once and for all. I'll have a plan for tomorrow. Now, just pack your things." So the day is here, and everything that could go wrong did. There might have been a distraction of some kind, and then... it broke. There was chaos. Quote, "One second they were as docile and peaceful as a kindergarten toddler, and the next they were ripping the place apart. I think the loud crash might have startled them. I didn't know that they were prone to their instincts. The screams caused the creatures to become hostile. Opila Bird escaped her containment in response to the screaming, climbing up the ball pit ready to attack anything that didn't resemble a child. Banban turned into his monster form, Josh pummeled everything that he could. They all turned. Except for one. I'm okay, and Claire's okay. The nice jellyfish saved us from the big bird and the evil red man. We're going to the jellyfish's home. The nice jellyfish is very strong. He carried everyone here. But Miss Mason hates him, and I don't know why. Stinger Flynn grabbed some of the kids before they fell and managed to keep himself from his primal instincts, as well as keeping them safe from Josh, Banban, and Opila, and carried them down to the lower levels. The rest of the workers tried to flee, suffering attacks from Josh, Nab Nab, and the captain's crew. Eventually, they were all overwhelmed, and are very much dead. Currently, it is unknown what fate Uthman and Waverly sustained, but considering we find plane tickets still sitting by the computers, chances are they also did not make it out alive. Now, Stinger's actions were not all because of the protective instinct that these scientists were trying to achieve. He was driven by a different motivation. After living in this facility with his superior intellect, he is tired and wishes for nothing more than to become a mindless jellyfish swimming in the ocean. His plan is to keep the children because they will help him achieve his goal, according to him. That's really all the information I have on that. Now, let's put a pause on this and talk about things before we move on with the story, cause yeah, we're not done yet. Because of how the story is handled in this series, I had to take a lot of liberties and make guesses to fill in gaps. I am struggling with figuring out how Jumbo Josh fits into any of this. In chapter 3, we're given very specific clues about the fact that Josh could be the one that these people were trying to take out of the facility through the note that was locked away with a pretty creative puzzle that, yes, took from the FNAF messages and darkened pictures thing. But the problem is, and even then, I really don't think that's the case because it fits a little too cleanly. The line in the notes saying he plays with them like toys and throws them around, seeing Josh just fuck him up, and Bambolina saying,
"That big green guy keeps checking in on us. I think he believes we're some sort of dolls."
It all fits too well. This scenario just smells like the most obvious red herring of the century. And there's this one small detail. In fact, we have to turn it back around if we want our little secret down in the basement to stay a secret. Zolphius can only stay asleep if nobody goes to investigate. Jumbo Josh was never in the basement with Zolphius. In fact, he was kept as a mascot to be developed for presentation. Management knows about him. And that's going with the assumption that the doctors are the ones that are trying to take these creatures out in the first place. But there's stronger clues about that being the case, so I'm willing to stick with that one. Adding on to the fact that the audio tape locked away with the secret note summons Zolphius himself, whatever the hell these wackos are talking about, it ain't Josh. Good job, Wiki. And we have even stronger clues that they might be referring to Zolphius due to the note here saying that they needed to make new friends out of scrap materials to keep this thing happy. Mr. Kebab Man is the only thing around here that doesn't look like the other cases. And there's no documentation on him. And Banban also calls him an imposter, which could mean that the cases don't see Kebab Man as one of them. And when Banban takes Kebab Man and places it saying, quote, "He must have gotten lonely, but he'll have a new friend."
He must have gotten very lonely, but I got him a new friend.
And you press a button to call whoever he's talking about. When we get back, we see Zolphius. Though I am still curious why there isn't any information on Josh or Zolphius at all. And I know that the story isn't finished yet doesn't make me any less annoyed that I can't figure it out. And yeah, the notes that address someone else. Hey, blah blah blah. I'm assuming that's between Uthman and Waverly because we see the note about someone discovering that something is going to go horribly wrong at the kindergarten event and to have things packed and they all have a plan. And if you look around, you can find boarding passes for Uthman and Waverly. So pretty sure what's happening here is that while they're working for this management, whoever, making mascots come to life, they discovered the lower floors and the abandoned projects down below. The two of them can't have kids. So they decide to either pick one of the abandoned projects, work with it, and take it away from this place to raise it as their own, or they decided to try and make a mascot with the child's genome, and they're working on it in secret in the basement, and yeah. But then one of them does some research and discovers, hey, we really didn't think this through too well, but we're still doing the right thing, I'm proud of us. And then, yeah, the ball pit thing happens. Which would bring this story to when we enter the picture, but there's one more part that we need to cover before we get to that. The story of the depths. Now I do need to ask that you bear with me because This whole part of the story is actually really infuriating to figure out how to write because of how little information I have to work with. Somewhere along the way, they create Case 14, Queen Bouncelia, a large purple kangaroo with entities in her pouch known as the Naughty Ones. Now, Bouncelia was originally created with the intention of teaching children the importance of being good, and using her pouch, she could show what would happen to bad children. However, for reasons that remain unclear, management requested that she be moved to the lower levels, where she would be provided a holding area styled similarly to her previous holding cell, her kingdom. She asked if this place would be where she would teach children as she was created to do. It was written in the update report that the answer will forever remain no. Before she was moved, she was told that her scepter would be taken away for examination as she believes it has magical powers. Her caretaker mentioned that there are no official records of a scepter ever being manufactured and given to her. When asked, she would not elaborate on how she got it, always claiming that she could not remember. Over time, she slowly started to refuse to cooperate with the scientists, a stance that did not previously exist. The next report was made after Sheriff Toadster, Syringian, Bittergiggle, and Sir Dadadoo were also moved to the lower levels. Until more information is discovered, it is unclear who Bittergiggle and Sir Dadadoo are, why they were created, and why they were also moved. It is equally unclear why Syringian was originally created. However, before he was moved, it was proposed that he could help with Javanium procedures. Regardless, at the end, he was moved. So here's what we definitively know. Bouncelia and Bittergiggle were already down here when Toadster arrived. Sir Dadadoo was actually pretty decent and intelligent in the beginning, but then turned when he was thrown down here. They had a plan to do something, but it failed. And when it came time for punishment, instead of standing with Dadadoo, they let him take the punishment himself. After she was moved, the staff returned Bouncelia's scepter to her, and Syringian was the one responsible for making the staff have powers. He designed it to only work with Javanium-based life forms, so for humans, it will be nothing more than just some prop. So with this information, here's what I'm able to gather to be the story so far. Syringian was moved for multiple reasons. All of these reasons made him permanently unsuitable for presentation, so he was moved. It is unclear why Bouncelia, Bittergiggle, and Sir Dadadoo were moved. And Toadster wasn't exactly moved. He, and the other cases that were dropped thanks to Dr. Uthman, were quite literally dropped in this abyss, where the scientists up above believe things died when they got dropped in.
After I was thrown down here by your kind like I was trash, I was hopeless, aimless, cold, and miles away from the promised surface.
Understandably, cases are pretty distraught when they're thrown in the abyss. We have strong implications that cases are created and given the promise that they will eventually see the outside world, or at least the surface. When cases were dropped, they became violent and vindictive. And one case in particular felt this the most, Sir Dadadoo. So he created a plan to take back what they were promised. He instructed Queen Bouncelia and Bittergiggle to work with Syringian to create cases of their own and build an army. And with the help of the scepter to control the army, Sir Dadadoo would lead the charge to rebel against the scientists that betrayed them. However, an expedition team was sent to the lower levels and returned with urgent information. They gave evidence that Bouncelia and Bittergiggle were using their own genomes to create creatures of their own, and Syringian was the one that taught them how to do it. They predict a rebellion is imminent. According to the last update report on Bouncelia, quote, Toadster, Bouncelia, and Sir Dadadoo were given 24 hours to decide on whether they will proceed with their plan or completely destroy any and all feats they have achieved thus far, unbeknownst to Bittergiggle, which appears to be the most in favor of said plan. A very violent outcome was hinted at if they decided to go with the former. Caught and out of options and unwilling to risk total annihilation,
We had no choice! They were going to destroy us all!
they surrendered, and then an ultimatum was made. Seal Sir Dadadoo and the Naughty Ones away in Queen Bouncelia's pouch, or everyone faces the consequences. As per management's request, we are keeping annihilation of all participating cases and newly formed subcases as a last resort. given how financially ruining that option would be. They betrayed Sir Dadadu and sealed him away, with the Queen instructing Bittergiggle that he must never make her laugh again, despite it being what he was made to do. Because otherwise Sir Dadadu and the Naughty Ones will escape, and everything will be destroyed. An expedition will be dispatched bi-weekly from now on to ensure that cases 4, 9, 14, 17, and 18 are not getting any unwanted thoughts again. Chapter 7 gives us a little bit more information, but unfortunately not enough for me to draw any conclusions with. Though it's interesting to witness, and I'm here for it. Now, just like the first plotline, I had to take huge liberties with some stuff, and I'm just drawing conclusions in the attempt to put the pieces together through the context clues that have been given so far. But because we don't have the full story yet, there is a huge probability that I am wrong somewhere. We will see. But that finally brings the story to us, a lone parent on a search for their missing child, which is actually pretty easy to lay out. It's just the games. You go to the kindergarten, see no one's there, get pushed down a hole, find an underground facility, get knocked out by the evil red man, meet up with the evil red man who tells you you both have the same goals, go down a level, meet Stinger Flynn who drugs you, arrest some plastic buckets, become a temporary doctor, get drugged by Stinger again, wake up in Josh's training room, fight a boss, witness a mosh pit, go down a level, get captured by a toad, meet a queen who tells you the children aren't there, fix the elevator, watch the jester basically kill the queen, retreat to the next lower level, take refuge in a safe area, and come up with a plan to unlock the queen's scepter. Hang on. Hallucinate about some blue pig thing, recruit the jester's help, unlock all the locks, release the scepter to discover that the guard is missing and the scepter is missing a piece, and then big bad Sir Dadadu comes in and takes names and good old Banban holds them off while you descend once more. Then you find a truly abandoned part of the facility where you get knocked out again, this time by the scepter's guard, the surgeon. You make him reconsider his actions by politely telling him why he's wrong. And then you come up with a plan to stop Sir Dadadu by way of using Jumbo Josh, who is somewhere in the city, after conducting a completely uneventful investigation where definitely nothing significant happens. You lace the scepter piece and give it to Dadadu, and then watch Mosh Pit 2.0. Wake up in another hospital resting area thingy, discover there's a blue Banban, and the good doctor does what any good doctor does and punches you square in the face. Let's get into dissecting this story. In storytelling, you want to make sure that you eventually answer questions that you may end up making your audience ask. And the most important questions you want to make sure you answer is almost any question that starts with why. So on the subject of why, let's talk about why we're here, the MacGuffin, if you will. Firstly, what is a MacGuffin? Well, a MacGuffin is the term used for an object or device, in this case a person or child, in a story that serves merely as a trigger for the plot. It serves to drive the plot forward. You'll see a missing child be used as the MacGuffin in a few games before this, the well-known ones being Fallout 4, The Forest, and Resident Evil 8. But both Fallout and The Forest have one glaring problem in regards to this plot device. They take place in an open world environment where they have this narratively very time-sensitive thing. You need to get your child back, but they put you in this open world where you can do whatever you want, which kind of takes away from the importance of the premise. Yes, I understand that I need to get my child back, but there's this mountain that I haven't climbed yet. There might be bottle caps up there. Resident Evil's problem is something entirely on its own. Now, these games aren't open world, but we've been here for a pretty long time. But to the narrative's credit, we never really end up doing anything that isn't directly related to getting closer to where our kid supposedly is. However, you will also notice that while the two previously mentioned games are open world, you do eventually learn where your kid is being held, and you have a rough idea of what you need to do to get him back. And I actually think that The Forest kind of improves itself a little bit because it presents you with a morality choice that neatly ties back into the beginning of the game. I'm a bit of a fan of that. I'm here for that. Resident Evil 8 also had this premise, and you find out pretty quickly that you need to fight all of the big bad guys in order to get her back, but... oh, that's a different video. Garten of Banban, we have yet to really learn where the kids are being held. We can infer that we're kinda close, but we don't know how close, and we don't know where they are exactly. So far, only Stinger knows, and he just won't ever tell you, and instead resorts to telling you that everything is your fault. Even though that, you know, we didn't capture him and put him in that holding cell thing. That was Toadster, but never mind that. We don't know where they are, so we don't know what potential hardship we'll have to go through to get them back. We don't have any stakes in this regard. We don't have any hardships or challenges that we know we'll have to overcome to get our child, and really feel like a parent who's looking for their lost child. We don't get any potential feeling of panic because we never see our child be taken from us. We don't get that feeling of being willing to go to hell and back to find our child. There's a lot happening that I don't have answers for, and don't get me wrong, I am quite intrigued. I am very interested to see where this goes. Whenever the other games come out, I'll make an amendment once I get more information. But regardless, as always, I have questions. But I need to say this first. When writing a story, you need to keep things simple enough to understand, even things that you're trying to keep vague because you plan to reveal more information later. And I have to say, the naming scheme and the case update reports is needlessly complicated. When you're reading through a report and you see case 10, case 2, type 5, no one on God's green earth understand what the fuck that even means. That's not a mystery, that's annoying. And yes, there is this hidden chart in Garten 6's secret room, but let's break this down. It's obvious that Type 1 is pure Givanium, Type 2 are the cases, 3 and 4 are erased, Type 5 you have a picture of a heart, brain, and a volume icon, and Type 6 you have the picture that you used in Garten 2 and the genome cloy symbol. That really doesn't help anyone. Alright, let's run through a couple questions here. Who the fuck is management and why are they invested in these creatures? What was the distraction that one's supposed to be? Why is Banban obsessed with eating pancreases? Why does Banban think he's Uthman but also call himself Principal Banban? Why does Banban hate fucking Kebab Man? Why did Stinger Flynn rescue the 2 children with the goal of somehow getting to the ocean to become a real jellyfish, only to just leave them on the lower levels and come back up to the 3rd floor? If Stinger cares so much about his goals, why is he just chilling in his room, allowing them to potentially get away or get taken by something else? What was the scientist's contingency if things went horribly wrong? How would they have contained these creatures? Evidently, these people should be pretty smart. Surely they would have thought of the worst case scenario at some point. Was their plan just to run away and hide? What would have been their plan if they got out and started killing everyone? What does it actually take to kill any of these creatures? Who is Zolphius and why is it sorry? And maybe more importantly, who the fuck are we? These are the kinds of questions that you need to ask when creating your narrative, and while a few of them you don't necessarily need to know, the rest needs to be answered over time, and some of them you need to make immediately clear to the player so they understand their role in the story. Questions like, who are we, whether or not we're the mother or the father? That probably should be answered right away. Now, if you want to remain ambiguous, that's fine, but you need to avoid storytelling and dialogue that would conflict with that. Notes that say mommy, implying that we're a mother, and dialogue saying sir, implying we're a male, and therefore a father. We need to know who the hell we are in relation to this child, and you need to choose what you're gonna go with. Let's look at the other questions I asked. So, what's going on with Banban and the pancreases? Small running joke thing with the character, I get that, but there's so much attention brought to it throughout the games that it's become an actual part of his character. So why does he eat pancreases of all things, especially when these creatures have no real need to eat anything? There's no clarification whatsoever. Next question. So, Banban has Uthman's memories. He fully believes he is Uthman. He was a scientist. He has co-workers, and they're responsible for not acting quick enough to stop these experiments. He's seen cases escape containment and all this stuff. Why does he take the role of a principal then?
Attention everyone, this announcement concludes your lunch break. Please return to your classes. Also, teachers, please keep in mind that we're on the lookout for a very, very naughty student, believed to be accompanied by a drone. If you catch them, call Principal Banban's office immediately.
Why does he flip-flop between accepting the name Banban
Call Principal Banban's office immediately.
and being agitated when he isn't called Uthman?
He gets really just erratic when I call him Banban. Do you know why that is?
Why does Banban hate Kebab Man? If he believes that he's Uthman, and Uthman and Waverly created the Kebab Men to keep their creation, which can be implied to be Zolphius, happy,
I need to hand this imposter over to someone very close to me.
then why does he call Kebab Man an imposter? Uthman created the Kebab Men. They wouldn't be imposters, they would be creations. Calling it an imposter would mean he's okay with being Banban, and that he's not agitated when he isn't called Uthman. That seems like an inconsistency. The questions I asked about Stinger Flynn, I don't need to go any further. He's so adamant about this goal of his, to the point where he's saying that everything that happens is our fault and why he can't achieve his goal. But why the hell did you come back up to the 3rd floor? Why did you leave them at the bottom? You had them right there. Alright, let's entertain this. Why are you blaming us for the naughty ones escaping and the fact that you're small now? We'll work backwards. We had absolutely nothing to do with the naughty ones escaping. I think they would have escaped anyway. Why? We're told that the jester went rogue. Evidently, that means hell-bent on telling the queen a joke.
They cited some end of the world scenario where whatever's in the queen's pouch escapes if I make her laugh. But I'm not buying it! I was distraught, and I became dead set on making the ultimate jokester. But after failing time and time again, I realized something. I am the ultimate jokester! Follow every single one of your orders. Why won't you give me that satisfaction one last time? All I want is to make you laugh.
But you know what will happen if I laugh.
I do. And I told myself time and time again that some things are more important than laughter. But I can't wait anymore! I need to make you laugh, even if just for a little bit.
Toadster does absolutely nothing to capture Bittergiggle when he had the opportunity. And then we see him release the dinosaur, which we couldn't stop, so it would have been like we weren't there. And then we get shoved in a room for a little bit, which again would make it as if we weren't there in the first place. And when we come back to the kingdom, Toadster is knocked out and the dinosaur thing is here. Almost like us being here had no effect on anything. Which is more than likely what would have happened if Toadster was just standing at the throne room entrance rather than working on the elevator anyway. Because he's right next to the stairs when we see that he's out. He was here! As for your size, Stinger, we weren't the ones that captured you. That was Toadster. Someone who was created and instructed on how to capture cases his size and larger. Even if you didn't get in that scuffle with Josh, I really don't think it's impossible to assume that you would have gotten captured anyway. That's kind of the sheriff's thing. Everything that happened to you cannot be blamed on us. The question about the scientists, I can see them not having a plan if it was like a Half-Life situation. I don't think it's out of the question to not know what to do when aliens just suddenly start showing up. Them running away in that context makes sense. These scientists were actively creating these creatures, and they know about their hostility, and have even had some break containment before.
I've seen cases escape containment before, but nothing this crazy.
I don't think it would have been out of the question for at least one of them to be thinking about what might happen if they all break out, if they all go hostile, and everyone starts dying. We'll talk about killing the cases later, which brings me to my questions about Zolphius, the floating silent face that appears everywhere. For being a character with so little information about him and being the only character without a quote, he shows up quite a lot. Which makes me ask, why? Why does he appear when you play the audio tape with the note about the mystery child? Why is "I'm sorry" the only thing he says? And then there's this note. Zolphius can only stay asleep if nobody goes to investigate. Why does Zolphius need to stay asleep? Honestly, for this one, I'm okay with it going unanswered for now, because I think I would leave going into details about him for the very end of the story, or at least the very, very bottom of the facility, and only just minorly trickle in information about him throughout the games, like we see. Like, how he's handled is probably what I would do. So I'm okay with how he is being handled, but he will need to be answered before the story is over. But something that I'm not okay with leaving unanswered this long is management. Whenever we have a story about this corrupt, evil, unknown company or corporation, maybe, more often than not, players learn about that company as they go through the game or games. Even just knowing who they are is enough to get by, at least for a while. Outlast, you know right away that it's the Murkoff Corporation in charge of the asylum. And as you progress, you learn about all of their bullshit, you learn why they're doing what they're doing in the first place, you learn how this stuff got started, you learn about the Wall Rider, you learn everything, and you find out little by little as you go through. More relatable example, Five Nights at Freddy's. The very first game, in the very first lines, you learn who the company is, and you can immediately pick up that they're shady as fuck.
Let's see. First, there's an introductory greeting from the company that I'm supposed to read. It's kind of a legal thing, you know. Upon discovering that damage or death has occurred, a missing person report will be filed within 90 days or as soon as property and premises have been thoroughly cleaned and bleached and the carpets have been replaced.
If the shady evil management thing wasn't an angle in your story, that's fine, but you need to at least give some information about them because that builds your world and it makes it more believable. No employees ever say management when referring to their managers, when talking to coworkers or writing official documents like scientific update reports. It's always either the name of a person or name of an organization. Yeah, I was writing this article, but then the fuckheads at Kotaku just slapped it down. I don't know why. Yo, did you hear what Mr. Smith did? He just fired Jeff. Hey, Fred's kind of pissed off with everyone calling out. You might not want to ask for time off right now.
So BSAA got it already. They didn't waste any time.
If your goal was to keep the company name or manager's name or names out of the reports, kind of like SCP, just use the black lines that you see in SCP's documents. Like, that's not a made-up thing. That actually happens if information is redacted so people can't see it. That would be believable, and that would give some natural mystery. Moving on, we have the plotline of what happened down below up to when we get there. Considering this seems like a plotline that they're still developing, I don't have a whole lot to comment on. We don't have all the information in front of us, and I could ask questions till the cows come home, but without a finished story, there really isn't much point. We know Sir Dadadu was cooking up something and plotting to, I guess, take over the facility. We don't know why. We don't know what happened. We know the scepter was involved to seal him and the naughty ones in the Queen's pouch. We don't know what happened that made that be the outcome. There's a lot of information that we just don't have about this whole thing. And I know I just got done making assumptions about what likely happened, but I'm here to tell you that you should not take my interpretation as gospel. I'm not the developers. I don't actually know. Now, if it turns out that I'm right, then hey, I guess I'm just that fucking good, but We need to wait until we have all the information in front of us before we can really say anything definitive. Despite the sort of theory crafting that I just did, I'm not a theory channel. So let's talk about the story just in general. There's a lot of things that this story does okay, and of course there are parts that need some more work. And I have one more question that I'll save for the end of this section that I think could help to kind of drive a particular point home. With that said, I'll proceed. When making multiple entries in one story, continuity is an extremely important thing to maintain. The best way to do that is to plan out everything before you start making that first entry. I'm fairly sure they have at least some kind of roadmap planned and written out, but I don't know that for sure. I am hoping that they do have it planned out, because if they don't, that is always a recipe for disaster. I do give them props for keeping with it this long, but I really hope they do have a plan, because when writers don't, there is an extremely high possibility that they will burn out and not know where to go next. Because writing chapter to chapter, game to game is not a foreign concept for me. I've seen that kind of thing occur before, and almost every time that it happens, the writer just stops at some point. I'll give an example. I talked about this person before, Haikitsune, fanfiction writer. He has some of these stories here, My Master and Mine Alone, Height Problem, Lone Wolf. All of them just have 3 chapters each. He had these individual ideas, but he was writing the story as he went. He didn't have the story thought out beforehand, and each time they just stopped at 3. It's not an uncommon thing to see with inexperienced writers, and it is unfortunate because a lot of the time they have a great idea for a story, and it goes a fair way, but once they stop and don't know where else to go, it just dies. That can either be because they run out of steam and don't have the energy to continue. They ran out of ideas for it to continue. They got bored of the story. The list goes on. Hell, we've seen this kind of thing happen in this very fucking genre. I mentioned it several times before, and I'll mention it now. Scott had to stop the story with like game 4, I'm pretty sure, and completely start over. And as I'm sure a fair few of us have seen, that is fucking murder on continuity. That's why you don't just write the story chapter to chapter. That's why you don't write game plots per game. That's why you need to plan it out, because you want to avoid stopping and starting over and having to retcon everything that you've written so far. And I couldn't help but notice, gentlemen, that you released a trailer for a completely new game set to release in the future. It is not uncommon for game developers to work on other projects while in the middle of something else. But I will advise caution with how much you take on and how long you branch away. Your story is not complete yet. Do not leave it unfinished. Now, ultimately, how you want to tell your story is up to you. If you write it chapter to chapter, go for it. If you want to have the story be told entirely through notes, then hey, more power to you. As long as y'all know where you're taking everything, that's completely fine. The drawback of the notes thing is what you might have seen from a few people by now. It is incredibly difficult to follow, especially when you have major plot points hidden away in places that it doesn't make sense to have them there. That's something that I yelled at Outlast 2 for.
So how exactly are we able to conclude that the Murkoff Corporation is tied into this whole story? Well, the reasoning behind this one actually gets pretty bad. You find a note. If that isn't thin enough, how about the fact that you don't even know to attempt to make this connection unless you go out of your way to go all the way to this super obscure little island here at the lake to find this throwaway note? Look at where I have to go to find this. Why the hell would you even think to go over here in the first place? And to top it all off, the biggest plot point to even attempt to possibly tie all of this stuff together is hidden away in a note with a reference to a minor character in the first game who wrote one variant post-mortem document.
Now, to the credit of Garten of Banban, these aren't handled that badly. I mean, to find the secrets in the game, you have to do things. I think Garten 1 was possibly the actual worst one, because you need to find this 7th egg. And why the actual hell someone would think to look for it all the way the fuck out here is beyond me. There is a minor thing that I kind of like and dislike, and it's this weird subversion with the different mascots. For most of your experience in the first 2, arguably 3 games, all of these things are hostile towards you, and then you have ones that aren't. I like it because it's a subversion from what we're used to with these mascot games. The creatures are always hostile to you. They are always a threat. I dislike it because with the specific way these mascots are designed, this subversion, well, the player is very likely just going to be confused because there's really no telling which ones are supposed to be hostile or not. But that's also a part of the story, which is why story is so fucking important and why I get irritated when people blatantly ignore it. Not naming any names. But this also isn't something that we haven't seen before. Bendy and the Ink Machine had the same concept, but it handled it a little differently. In Garten of Banban 1, the first chapter, we encounter Opila Bird and Jumbo Josh. Both are hostile. Well, Opila is hostile. It's honestly hard to tell with Josh because he doesn't exactly attack you, he just knocks the elevator over. Garten 2, we meet Nab Nab, who is hostile, then Banban, who has been talking to us, implying he's friendly, but then he knocks us out for an unknown reason. I want to talk about that too, by the way. Which implies he's hostile, but then he talks to us more instead of killing us, which implies he's friendly? Then we meet Opila, who's hostile again, then Bambolina, who is neutral? She doesn't attack us, but if we don't follow the rules, she will. Oh, and then we hear Banban over the intercom saying if anyone catches us to report us to Banban's office, which implies maybe hostile. Then Celine, who will attack us if we move, hostile. Then we meet Banban again, who says we have the same goals and tries to help, so friendly. Bendy, on the other hand, just about everything is hostile with exception to 2, technically 3 characters. Boris and Alice. Everyone else is hostile. It works a bit better here because Boris not being hostile after a good amount of time running from Bendy can be a sort of breath of relief. You're not alone in this hellhole anymore. And it works more because your companion gets taken and is turned into this horrific version and you're forced to fight him. It's actually a little sad. Can get you in the feels a little bit. Then you meet Alice. That's after a few floors of avoiding enemies and walking into a very obvious trap by the not very nice Devil Alice. And meeting Alice serves as a surprise. Oh, you're not gonna kill me? Question mark? Now, since I mentioned Garten 2, I want to talk about Banban a little more. This is actually difficult to say definitively because it's entirely situation dependent, but in general, in story writing, you should show the monster. But you should wait until the moment where you absolutely have to show the creature. Example. Lord of the Rings. You have all of this buildup and the goblins and the troll are coming, but they're doing everything they can to keep them out of the room. A logical reaction for the situation. It makes sense for them to do that. So you never see them until they break down the fucking door. You are shown the creatures, but not until they absolutely have to show you. Same with the Balrog. The very last moment is when they're running away and about to escape. He needs to intervene and thus revealed. Does that make sense? Garten of Banban. We got a guy trapped in the room talking to us on the cameras. He needs our help. Not terrible. We're actually not alone down here. There's other people around. Well, that's good. Okay, we'll try to help this guy so we're not alone. And it's Banban. So now we know this dude was actually Banban. What are we gonna do for the rest of the game? You kind of just revealed Banban, the character that the name of the game is. Whatever. I really think you guys missed an opportunity for a massive twist by revealing that this guy is Banban right away. If you're going to show us that our helper was actually Banban, I would have saved it for the end when you saw him on the elevator behind the glass, because that would have stuck with the idea that he's trying to help you, and now you know that not all of these creatures are immediately hostile. And if you want to keep the idea that Banban has this uncontrollable Hulk out mode that makes him really dangerous, you could throw in a line, something along the lines of like, I would have preferred to keep a distance because I'm just as dangerous as the ones you saw, or something to that effect. That would give more mystery, because why is one of these things helping you? How is he dangerous but he isn't attacking? What the fuck? Instead, in your story, this is revealed immediately. He knocks you out and fucking prepares you for surgery? We'll come back to that, but the fact that he tricked us, knocked us out, stole our shit, and announced on the intercom that if anyone saw us, they should report us to his office, is going to make us think that he is very much not on our side. And then we come to the end where he says we have the same goals, and I'm sorry, but I'm just not going to believe him. I can't trust this thing. It is vitally important in a story to make sure you don't have things that contradict other things, and unfortunately, we have more than just fucking Banban. So in the case report that we find about Opila Bird, it says it will be aggressive towards anyone not possessing childlike qualities, meaning if we are not a child or a tiny bird, Opila will be aggressive and attack. But when we first see Opila, she's not aggressive at all. Instead, she runs and assumes the puzzle pose. And then when she's active, she's curious? This directly contradicts what we read about her and how she behaves the rest of the time. Another thing, why were there eggs out here to feed Opila if she wasn't supposed to be up here for the Bring a Friend Day? Opila came up because she heard the children scream when the ball pit broke and went to fuck shit up, which would logically mean that her little task thing wouldn't have been set up during the event. What about Nab? Throughout all of the games, we're given the implication that he's this crazed, lonely spider that will kill employees on site. It got so bad that they needed a mandated announcement about it. But when we first run into him in this doorway, he's just watching us, and if we go up to him, he runs away. Is he dangerous to us or not? I understand having it from the gameplay perspective, but you need to think about it narratively as well, which is why we need to plan things out. Here's a more minor contradiction. If you're going to establish in lore that Uthman was getting in trouble for producing too many cases and it was costing Givanium, and that, quote, it doesn't grow on trees, implying that they don't have a lot and it's incredibly difficult to get a hold of, small suggestion, maybe don't have barrels upon barrels upon barrels upon massive barrels just around, everywhere we go. Now you could argue that they're all empty, but evidently not. The bird falls into this one and transforms. We use these to distract said bird, and we use this one to blow up Nabnalina. These barrels are full. Now obviously I don't know how much Givanium is used to make a mascot, but it would seem to me they had plenty of it. There's another one. In Garten 3 and 4, Banban says that he wanted to keep his distance and communicate from afar. And in 2, he was sorry that he knocked us out, but we had something he needed. But when we're with Bambalina, we hear him say on the intercom, be on the lookout for a naughty student accompanied by a drone. If you catch them, call Principal Banban's office immediately. He already got what he needed from us, so there's no other reason for him to be in close proximity to us. But he wants to find us? And in Garten 3, he says, again, I apologize for hitting you, and it's for this reason that I think we should not meet face to face, meaning that in between the time he knocked us out to when he's talking to us now, he decided that face-to-face meetings wasn't a good idea, citing him hitting us as the reason why. So why did he want the teachers to call him if they found us when he already got what he needed? And why didn't he say this when he was talking to us on the elevator? It wasn't that long ago. Also, he says he locked himself in the surveillance room because for whatever reason, he was prone to violent instincts and didn't trust himself to not give in to them again. But then he hulks out, for some reason, we don't know why he chose violence here, and found us. Which, 1, contradicts his measures to make sure he didn't meet us, and 2, he says he locked himself away because for whatever reason he was prone to violent instincts and didn't trust himself to not give in to them again, implying that he hit us because he gave in to his violent instincts. But in 2, he said very clearly that he hit us because he needed something from us and was all out of sedatives. And to come back to what I mentioned earlier, why the fuck did he prepare us for surgery? What happened? Because the next time we run into Banban, he's in his monster form and says we don't have any organs. What? Was that the fucking surgery? If it was, how the actual fuck do you think that would work? We would not be alive if that was the case. At best, we would not be human, but this theory is thrown out the fucking window thanks to Chapter 7 and everyone referring to us as human.
I originally had something else written here, but after thinking about this scenario a little more, I realized something. I am absolutely correct. It is impossible for a human to be alive without organs. It is impossible for Banban to be here, but then also locked in a security room when we wake up. And it doesn't make sense for us to be the ones with the tentacles. The only thing that does make sense for the sequence here is that it's us seeing from Stinger's perspective. And you know what clued me in? The barrels of Javanium. Because we start in his room, we wake up to Banban talking to us, we see Celine who tells us to hide, they're coming, and then we go to a room full of Javanium. And we know that these creatures can grow to massive sizes if they have a lot of Javanium in them. Stinger is massive when we first see him. That's it. So I'm like 99% sure that's what it is. So I'm also like 99% sure that we're supposed to be the mother of our child. I personally don't think that was too clear. But I also could just be dumb for not picking up on it right away. I think there could have been a much better way to convey this. I'm not sure what way that would be yet. I'll have to think about it more. But fuck me, I'm glad I figured that out. That was annoying me.
Now it's time for that final question. And it's a very simple one. I'll quickly reference back to what you guys said in your devlog.
What inspired not just the designs of the characters in the game, but the setting of the game. Well, the idea was to have a setting that most people would be able to relate to and then put our own twist on it. Things that are relatable to anyone and everyone could be associated with their childhoods. We've had this idea for a while now, and a correct implementation is what we needed. After a lot of brainstorming and thinking, a light bulb appeared over our heads, where the idea came through.
A kindergarten. Most people have been to kindergarten, and therefore most people would feel uncanny in a twisted kindergarten.
And now my question is this. Outside of the Bring a Friend Day event that helped with the tragedy part of your story, is there any part of this story that you think you could not have done without the setting being a kindergarten? Here's what I mean. Five Nights at Freddy's takes place in the restaurant. It cannot exist without the restaurant. Bendy, all of this is part of the art studio. The story cannot happen without the studio, particularly because it all started from that studio. Tattletale, everything happens at the kid's house. It cannot exist without the house. Indigo Park, this all takes place at the park. It cannot exist without the park. Resident Evil 7 takes place for the majority of the game at the Baker Estate. It cannot exist without the estate. Village takes place in the village. It cannot exist without the village. Resident Evil 1 takes place in the mansion. It cannot exist without the mansion. Poppy Playtime, while it's really fucking strange to have this shit in here, it's still part of the factory. This game is taking place in the factory. It cannot exist without the factory, and the creatures could not exist without the factory. The kindergarten was only around for the first game. We are spending the majority of our time in the facility. And then by chapter 7, we have gone so far past the kindergarten, We're all the way in this fucking underground city. We no longer see it as this twisted school. This story can take place without ever mentioning the kindergarten. These events can happen without the kindergarten. The creatures are created without the kindergarten as far as we know. This can all exist without the kindergarten. If you replace the kindergarten with just a bring your kid to work day, how much would actually change? Am I making sense? If your intention was to make the horror premise around this twisted kindergarten, I would have advised you guys to stay in that kindergarten a little longer. Every school these days has multiple levels or a basement. Well, almost every. Either filled with more rooms or to act as the utility area. I don't think it would have been out of the question to have Garten 2 happen in maybe a basement or lower level of the school, and then you could have explored some weirdness which then directly led into this massive facility and maybe found documentation vaguely suggesting some kind of experimentation. I think you guys should have kept the school a little longer so the idea stayed relevant a little bit longer and tried to sort of have it where you kept going down and down and you start questioning what's school and what's facility. I can see that you kind of have this with the waiting area with the giant tree in Garten 2 and the cafeteria in 3, but we can very clearly tell that this is the facility. The kindergarten was just that top level. The idea of using a school and scientific facility as a horror setting is not terrible. It's definitely something that can be worked with. But this just isn't designed in a way that really captures that horror vibe. Speaking of design, this place is massive. It's almost impossible to really get an idea of what the scale is when you have a massive abyss that this giant floating face can hide in, right in what I'm assuming is the dead center of the facility. It's so big that a massive jellyfish can pop out from under the platform that you're standing on, and you still question how he's doing it. So let's do what I did before, let's ask some questions. Why are there apartment buildings on the second level? Were there really that many people down here? Why is there just a massive pit underneath what was supposed to be a ball pit? Why is there just a giant abyss in the middle of some of the areas in floors 2 and 3? Why is everything comically large? Why is there a random key card locked behind a puzzle lock on an abandoned floor of the facility? Why is there a mock school system during the second game that's quickly abandoned in the later games? Why are there 5 levels of these massive floors? My point with these questions is that there's a lot of focus on the monsters, on the characters that we see, which is good. It's good to have lore about what these things are and how they exist, though there's still some odd details that just aren't explained. But there is almost zero information about the workers and the facility that we are spending the entirety of our time in, which is not good. Not even environmental storytelling can help us much. The most information we can get out of that is that this place is big and it's really oddly laid out. And the workers? Almost none of them act how I would think these people would act. I would think that they would want some kind of backup plan if these creatures they're creating go rogue and start killing everyone. If you can't contain or eliminate the creatures that you're creating in some way, that is a massive problem from a scientist's perspective. Even from management's perspective, the evil corporation of this game, or at least that's what I'm going with because I don't know, that'd be a potential loss of labor, which would mean not hitting timelines and quotas, which would mean increase in expenses, which would mean complications. We talked about immersion in horror before, but might as well get into it again here. Immersion is really, really important, not just for horror games, but any game really. But why? Because immersion is what draws you in and keeps you interested in the game's world. If you do something to break that immersion, it is really difficult to hold a player's interest if they happen to notice. Give you an example. I cannot get into Fallout 4. The setting of Fallout 4, after you wake up, is supposed to be 100 years after the bombs drop. Alright, so I don't know why this is the thing that it is, but I'm about to show you this video. If you get garbled or staticky audio from it, switch to headphones. Apparently that fixes it according to the uploader, but yeah, I don't know why it does that, but apparently it does. So if you can't hear it, switch to headphones. Frictional understands that maintaining immersion is important, not just for scares, but for the story to work. In order to maintain immersion in a semi-unrealistic setting, you need to maintain some sort of realism. Things that could be seen as basic and provable. This is something that's true for any game, not just horror. Also, side note, I love that the fucking artist understands this, not even part of the writing team. I love Frictional. So, for Soma, we have underwater research stations in the oceans all across the globe. So the idea of some research station in the ocean isn't unrealistic. The realism needs to be drawn from things that would happen down in the depths of the ocean on such a station. Water leaks, ventilation, how the robots can work in the sea, power source. Things that would make sense. Compared to that, Fallout 4, set 100 years after nuclear damage. It sure would be a shame if there was some place on the planet that had a similar experience that we could look at to see if this damaged, decayed, irradiated floating heap of wasteland would be realistic. Oh wait, we do. Ladies and gentlemen, Chernobyl, Hiroshima, Nagasaki today. Not even 100 years later. No, the immersion thing is not the only reason why I'm not thrilled with Fallout 4, but it is a heavy contributor for me. To bring it back to horror, there are no words to correctly emphasize just how important immersion is for horror, be that games, movies, shows, books, you name it. It's what helps that world feel more alive, to draw you in so that you can be in a state to be scared. I'll go back to what I said with Five Nights at Freddy's. This office feels fucking real. And that's mostly just with sounds, but also what you see on the cameras is what you might expect to see on a camera feed at night. Low lights, dark corners, you can't see very well. All of that feels real. And if you get drawn in, if you get immersed in it, those scares are going to work so much better. Anyway, this is another area where Garten of Banban is severely lacking. There is extremely little about any of this that feels realistic, mostly because we really have nothing to compare it to. Five Nights at Freddy's, we have a broom closet of a security office, which some people can confirm can be pretty accurate sometimes. Soma, underwater research station, we have those. Amnesia, a fucking castle, those exist. Poppy Playtime Toy Factory, got some parts that make sense, a lot of conveyor belts and assembly machines, that makes sense. Putting a daycare in a factory, I don't fucking know about that, but I guess. Outlast, Psychiatric Asylum. Garten of Banban, you don't spend a whole lot of time in the kindergarten itself. You spend most of your time in this underground, multi-level facility that I am very tempted to call a mad scientist playbox. And on top of that, we need to call attention to the most immersion-breaking stuff that I can think of. If you watched any of the playthroughs on the second channel, Bowiehunter Offline, link down below, you'll probably catch my friend asking in every game how this place is structurally stable.
How is this place structurally stable?
As much as I laugh at him about it, it's a valid observation. To bring it back to what I was saying in the beginning of this section, this facility is fucking massive. Unrealistically massive for being an underground facility. We'll start with the nitpick that I have. The scaling on the objects is just insane. It's like this facility was not designed with humans in mind. We see it with the tables, chairs, the benches, even the fucking house. And the solution here is not to make a narrative reason for why everything, things like the chairs and tables, are large. The solution is to scale them down to the size you would expect to see as a human. As an adult, this cafeteria table would not be coming up to your eyes. And this table would not make you feel like you're Captain Fiddles. Which incidentally brings us to Garten 3's level design and where I have the most questions. Which means we now need to briefly address this assertion. The working theory is that Garten 3 was made in response to the refunding of Garten 2 with unnecessarily sized rooms and hallways just to stretch out the runtime, so people pass Steam's 2-hour mark and can't refund it. And as I said in the last video, if that's what happened, then that's not good. If that is not what happened, and this was just the size that you guys went with, that's also not good, but we'll talk about that in a second. When responding to criticism, well, we have examples from major companies. The last thing you should do is not listen and double down and say to yourself, I'll just make this longer. Obviously, that's not good. Instead, you need to listen to what's being said. Even if it's not strictly speaking helpful, you can get a general idea of what the issues are. However, after talking with Ferris, I do not believe that this stretching was done in response to the refunds. So this was just the size of the facility that they had in mind. To a point, I get why this part is here. It's to mimic the trope of the ridiculous hallways you'll sometimes see leading up to the boss room. In some ways, it can be seen as menacing. Whatever's behind all these doors was such a threat that it needed to be locked behind this many doors. But at the same time, combined with the rest of just impossibly large architecture, it feels stretched for the sake of being stretched. I think I would be a little less critical about it if the doors were a little bit faster, so I'm not just sitting here waiting each time I move a few inches, but yeah. Now, to be very clear, the idea of jaw-dropping massive facilities under the ground is not a new concept, and if you get a chance to really see just the scale of how big these things are, it can leave a lasting impression and really put into perspective the kind of world that you're in. But the important thing about that is building up a scenario where this kind of structure is possible. I've been showing Portal 2 here, and anyone who has played or seen it probably knows why. It's the first time in this little 2-game series where we really get to see the scale of Aperture Labs. You start wondering just how the hell any of this is even here in the first place, and as you go, you kinda slowly learn. The topmost layer is mostly a bunch of beams and shipping containers and structures made out of these panels, and you can see the automated part underneath the actual panels being very minimal in their construction, which can make an argument that they're pretty lightweight, so nothing will just collapse on itself being so high up. Meanwhile, at the very bottom is where the heavier, more industrial stuff is, and it's okay to have this stuff here because it's close to the solid ground where it can take that kind of weight. And you can see the progression of how Aperture kept improving as you climb back up to the top, showing the more grounded, rusted, old, heavy stuff at the bottom, and the more sleek, clean, advanced, lightweight stuff at the top. It makes sense. Contrast that to Garten of Banban, you don't learn how any of this is possible. It's a grand scale that is never explained, which makes it more difficult to believe. And side note, something else that I want to point out, and this is true for Portal as well, I find it fascinating that there's like only one way out of the underground facility. Anyone else notice that? Massive underground facilities, hundreds of miles deep. Zero alternative ways out in case of collapse or cave-ins. Anyway, back on topic. I'm left to ask the question, why is everything so massive? It's a question that we don't have an answer for, and if we can't answer it, then I think it's safe to say that it probably shouldn't be there. We know why Stinger is massive, we learn about it through the notes. The more Javanium these things have, the bigger they become. So we know why he's big, but we don't know why the facility itself is big. Obviously, you guys designed it to match the size that these things can have, but that's a meta explanation. We need a narrative one. Why did management or whoever design this place this way? Did they know that Javanium could create these massive sizes? Was Javanium even part of the equation when this facility was first built? So the suggestion that I can make is, perhaps obviously, draw the scale of everything back. Make it more realistic. Large doesn't always equal scary. Let's get some more examples going. Poppy Playtime, Bendy and the Ink Machine, Amnesia, and Soma. Who's surprised? You know what? I've been talking for a long time here. Let's give you guys a break from me and let these play out. We'll talk about them after. I need some water. I think Bendy and the Ink Machine will probably be the better example to look at, so I'm going to save that one for last, and we'll look at Amnesia first. Amnesia takes place in Brennenburg Castle. It's fairly large, but it makes sense because it's a castle. It doesn't start getting weird until you get to the torture chambers. Yeah, if you've never seen or heard of this game, there's torture chambers. It's good. Next we have Soma, underwater group of research stations in a science fiction setting. As I said before, we have underwater stations IRL, so their existence isn't crazy. And we can reasonably believe that stations like this can exist at some point in the future if they don't already. So the size makes sense. Poppy Playtime I have more difficulty believing. Mostly because I just don't get what the setting is supposed to be. Like, it's a toy factory, but it's also a daycare with a train that goes miles down to another daycare city thing. What the fuck is this supposed to be? This doesn't make any sense whatsoever. Now, Bendy and the Ink Machine. As I said, I think this is the best example for sort of hiding an oddly large area, because it does it in a very subtle way and addresses the environment in ways that make sense. We start in the part of the art studio that Henry recognizes, a very humble, cheap-looking building. No concrete or plaster walls, all wooden, looks very old school. Then you go down a level and it looks the same, and it shows you rooms that, again, make sense. You have a music room where an animation studio would make scores to accompany the episode of an animated show. Chapter 3, it starts to get a little questionable. You know, just a little. But throughout this chapter and all the way through chapter 4, it's still believable that all of these floors and areas and offices would exist for a successful animation studio. But it's so fucking weird and off-putting because it's going down, not up. But only so far in chapter 4, because we get to a whole park under the art studio. Like, really? but they very quickly make up for it with, quite possibly, the single most theoretically horrific boss fight in indie game history. I mean, no joke, I love this. I'll play the whole thing for you here.
The biggest park ever built. A centerfold of attractions. Each one more grand than the one before it. It makes my eyes come to tears at the thought. But then, oh, Mr. Drew, for all your talk of dreams, you are the true architect behind so many nightmares. I built this park. It was to be a masterpiece, my masterpiece. And now you think you can just throw me out? Trample me to the dust and forget me? No! This is my park, my glory. You may think I'm gone, but I'm still here.
Because of just the imagery. That works for horror so well. Just a massive head and love it. Then in chapter 5, the last chapter, that's when we start getting the okay, what the fuck is this vibe check. You need a boat, there's a city with crazy people, and yeah. It works because the change seems gradual. It gets increasingly weird the further you go. You're not just thrown into it in chapter 2. And a big part that really helps is that when you wake up and press on in the beginning of chapter 2, Henry doesn't say something like, "What the hell is this?" He asks, "How did this place get so big?" Implying that it all looks like it makes sense, but it's just bigger since he's been there. That is huge for immersion because it tells us, oh, it just expanded since he was last here. It doesn't feel out of place. Unlike all of this. This section is definitely going to be short. I'm not a huge authority on puzzle games. I don't really know what makes a good puzzle game and what doesn't. I do understand simple things like not revealing the answer right away, giving the player the chance to solve the puzzle. But it's going to be really hard for me to judge puzzles in these games because 1, I'm just bad at puzzle games, and 2, the puzzle games that I do play are not what I think are standard. When I say puzzle games, I expect people to think of Portal, but of course, me not being super into the puzzle game scene, I don't know if that's actually true or not. Here's all the puzzle games that I have played. Siberia, very old adventure puzzle game. Myst, where you have to take fucking notes to solve the puzzles. Zelda, which are, well, Zelda. The Room series, which I think you can get an idea of once you see it. Object manipulation puzzle, sort of. Portal and Portal 2. I also own the Talos Principle, but I haven't played it yet. And that is out of a near 500 game library. So, not really a huge puzzle game person. I don't really play these games that often, even though I absolutely love the Myst series. I don't play them often enough. My take on the puzzles in these games, I mean, I got through them, so they can't be that bad.
Shit, this is a weird one.
You're not just wrong, you're stupid.
What the fuck ever. What the fuck?
Insanity is doing the exact same fucking thing over and over again, expecting shit to change.
Maybe you're just bad.
I mean, it's possible, but come on.
3 times in a row? That's even more than 3 times in a row.
Your intellect is as weak as your dollar. Failure is your destiny. You disrespect yourself and your nation. You are made of stupid.
I know I'm not colorblind because I got the other 2.
Are you sure about that?
2 of them are next to each other, and one of them isn't. 2 of them are yep, that's what it was. God fucking damn it. Too dark blue. I fucking hate this. Go fuck yourself.
All of these
On the bottom.
I mean, I do have questions, like, what happens if any of these people go up in number? Does the locking mechanism change? Why is the closet tied to multiple buttons or multiple desks? But that's about as far as I can go with it. Games, game engines, and graphical ability of said engines have really come a long way over the last decade. And you have all kinds of games that prove this, from AAA titles like Resident Evil 8 to indie titles like Indigo Park. And because of its impressive launch, Poppy Playtime set a really high bar for indie development in terms of graphical quality, among other things. Now, something that we can notice in Garten of Banban for the most part is that it definitely does not have the level of details and lighting and textures and art that you saw in Poppy Playtime. But I'll argue that it really doesn't need to. If anyone is making the argument that game bad because it doesn't have the same level of graphics as Poppy Playtime, I have a question about that. Because this one game in the indie space managed an impressive amount of graphical quality in its launch, does that automatically mean that all of these other games are now just bad? Is Slender bad because it's not like Poppy? Is Hyde? Is Five Nights at Freddy's, which is literally just a couple of PNGs? What about the horror games that intentionally have low-level graphics? Like games made in the PS1 Game Jam, like Power Drill Massacre, or Siren Head, or any of the Chiller's Art games like Parasocial. Are they bad because their graphics aren't like this? I don't think so. And you know, come to think of it, this isn't the first game to use pre-made assets either. Look at literally any Unity indie horror game. Tell me how many times you've seen this house, you've seen this furniture. Fucking Phasmophobia is built on Unity store assets.
A lot of people say they'll make a game and then they'll come back with nothing a month later. They've made 7 games now.
Yeah.
And at least they follow one storyline, even with how like basic everything looks. Like probably all these are assets or like easily made things in Unity or Unreal if that's what they're using. But it's still a lot to put them all together.
Yeah, but like that's the thing, like, right? It's like I understand like 3D modeling is like really fucking hard. So the idea of just using pre-made assets doesn't seem like that much of a fucking crime to me. It's like they're there for a reason.
Yeah.
As long as you credit them, which they do, what's the problem? Like they're there to be used for a reason. And this game has like really intense things going on. Like there's particle effects floating around there. You can see them.
Yeah. It reminds me of a lot of early VR chat like developers, you know? How everything was just assets reused, and then you started seeing the people who actually coded everything.
I mean, you see that like you see that in a lot of Unity-based games, like even like really well-known games like Phasmophobia. You can see similar rooms and similar textures that you would see in other with really well-known games. Like the idea of reusing pre-made assets is not uncommon.
That's the basic of object-oriented programming, which is the main like use case of programming currently.
My point with this is that I advocate for consistency. There are plenty of games that had bland, low-quality graphics with little to no details. No one said shit about them in that aspect. These games come up and suddenly it's a problem. If we're going to call attention to one game for little to no detail or textures, then we call attention to the rest of them for that same thing. It's that simple. Now, one might argue that all of these other games were a product of the time. Getting high quality details wasn't as easy as it is now. Now, the Euphoric brothers are just being lazy and not putting in the effort. I have no idea if that's even true. This is just a hypothetical counter-argument. To which I say, sure, but keep in mind that Amnesia, also released around this time frame, is an indie game itself, and this is what it looked like. Complete with textures and details and stuff like that. So, maybe the developers of these other indie games like Slender were also being lazy and not bothering. Still didn't have a problem with those games. Why are these games being called out? Because they're being sold for money? We went over that in the last video. So my argument is that graphical quality does not determine the quality of a game. Just because Garten of Banban doesn't look as super sharp and volumetric as Poppy Playtime does not automatically mean that it's a bad game. That determination relies on other factors. Now that said, better graphics can help with creating a horror experience, but even that's not strictly true. It doesn't need super high detail walls, volumetric lighting, particle effects, and this other stuff. It's nice to have, but you don't need it. And we have games that prove that. I mean, just look at any N64 game. Ocarina of Time is often regarded as the best Zelda game despite actually seeing the fucking polygons on it. For horror, look at Silent Hill 2. Look at any indie horror game on itch. Look at almost any Five Nights at Freddy's fan game. Normally your best bet is just keeping the lighting low. There's a reason why Slender isn't as scary in daytime mode and you can see the monster. The entire reason why Slender is scary is because you can barely fucking see. And if you turn the lights on, you can see that the textures really are not that impressive. And honestly, might just be as bland as Garten of Banban. But overall, Slender was still just fine. That's because of other things which we will talk about in the horror section.
Slender is the one that came 1.5, 2 years after release of Amnesia. The graphics are not very good, and the gameplay is not very good, but it has really good ambience just from having this very dark environment and good ambient track. It's very similar to Amnesia. I'd say it's even more it's all in your head, but I think we started seeing even more of these Let's Play games.
Now, you'll notice throughout this whole section here, I did not bring up the character poly count that some other people brought up. I didn't bring this stuff up. You know why? Because I don't understand it. I'm not a 3D modeler and I'm not a game designer. I don't know what a fucking poly count does, so I'm not gonna sit here and pretend like I do. I understand story writing and I somewhat understand horror, still learning, so those are the things that I'll talk about at length. Everything else I just briefly talk about. Now I can use context clues and assume that it can affect game performance just like the amount of lines in one script of a game's code, which even that I don't fully understand. But in that case I wouldn't think to mention it anyway, because the game ran fine for me. And since we're on the subject of the creatures themselves, I don't typically go after creature or monster designs too harshly because you can never create the perfect monster. You will never create something that everyone will find scary. Great case in point, fucking me.
But I feel bad for knocking on any kind of model design because I know full well that even this stuff is more than I can do. And horror is extremely subjective. But are these supposed to be scary looking? Because these are the kinds of things that I'm used to. So why are these seen as more frightening and therefore more suitable for horror? It's a simple concept. It's taking something recognizable and twisting it in some way. So in the case of Outlast and Amnesia, the recognizable thing is a human. For Amnesia, you can very clearly see how it's been twisted. I mean, this looks fucking disturbing. That will absolutely work for horror. Outlast, you got Chris Walker with the chains cutting into his skin. Or Trigger. Both, you can very clearly tell that they are human, they are still people, but there's just something not right. And the scissors, yeah. Bendy and the Ink Machine, this is a bit of a unique scenario. The recognizable thing is going to be our boy Boris. We see him here, alive and well. Then we come to this room and, oh god, Boris is not supposed to look like that. Then Boris gets taken away, Then we get to this room and oh god, Boris is definitely not supposed to look like that. Boris has now been twisted. You see? Or how about this guy? Working with the human angle. This guy was once human. He was an employee. The only thing left of that part of him is his head stuffed in this machine. Twisted. Poppy playtime. Huggy looks like a long, fluffy, living toy. How do we twist him up? Give him teeth. It's small, but it's enough. So what's the twisted part of your models? They're all clay-based. The Javanium gives them the veins we see. They're all meant to look the way they do. There's no real twisting element to this. I think the only time we really see something like this happen is with the tiny bird and Bittergiggle in chapter 7. I want to say it's with Nabnab too, but I'm not entirely sure. I need to think more about that. Regardless, my point is, when we see these creatures, that's them in their recognizable state. And for the majority of them, they stay that way. Only the bird and Bittergiggle ever go through this kind of twisting that I was talking about. The rest of them remain unchanged. But that's about as subjective as I can be with it. Like I said, horror is extremely subjective and you can never create the perfect monster.
But I wanted to briefly add in the topic of animation here because, like I've said numerous times previously, I can see that at least in the beginning, they didn't have a lot of experience with the Unreal Engine, and the only resource that they had at their disposal was free assets from the asset store. Probably one of the barest starts that you can have when designing a game. So I think that it's impressive that they were able to get any kind of character animation at all, no matter how clunky or basic it might be. Because it's really easy to talk shit about animation when you've never done it yourself. Once you actually try to make a full-blown animation at anything over 24 FPS, you kind of start to appreciate how much work even the simplest shit actually takes. And just like with implementing art, animating a 2D character in a side-scroller is not the same as 3D. So overall, the graphics and characters and models and the bland textures and the use of the asset store, I really don't see these things as that much of a problem considering the development team is just Ferris and Geppo. If this was like a small team of people with artists and designers and people who know how to make and implement custom textures, then that would be a different story. But it's not, so I don't see this as an issue. Now these games are pretty lacking when it comes to mechanics. You have all your normal stuff like running, jumping, activating keycard terminals that do various things like opening doors, but there's one mechanic that stands out in these games, and that is the drone. I know the drone gets a lot of hate, but honestly, I can't diss them for at least trying something original. Do you understand how difficult it is to create a completely original mechanic on your own? But we'll get to that. Yes, the good old drone.
Oh, the good old drones. I lost mine a couple weeks ago. Maintenance workers used them for all sorts of things, like reaching high places and grabbing things that fell into the abyss and sometimes even comfort. It's good that you have one. It might be useful in our little conundrum.
We'll talk about the therapy machine in a minute, but there's some mechanics that are absent that I want to talk about first.
These games lack one very crucial function that I really don't think is too much to ask for in 2023-2024. Pausing. I get that these games are short-ish, but you can't predict that everyone can play through them in one go. And you can't predict that there won't be situations where you need to pause the action to go do something and come back. And the fact that bringing up the menu doesn't pause the game is a huge negative for me. And not being able to bring up the menu at all during cutscenes or when I get dragged into Stinger's little mind palace thing, or in this situation, is also a negative. You know, I get that there aren't exactly threats in the games, and this is certainly not the same situation as this. And that it's perfectly okay to just stand there until you come back. But I feel completely confident in stating this. Players prefer having the option to pause the game. And in 2024, it's not a fucking outlandish thing to be able to pause a fucking single player game. Forspoken has a pause function. Fucking Gollum, which is undeniably worse than these games, has a pause function. This is a gripe that I have with Five Nights at Freddy's as well. I absolutely hate the fact that if I'm in the middle of a night or something comes up and I have to walk away, I can't pause the game. I either have to die and start over, or completely exit the game and start over. Either way, I'm starting over, which is annoying. Another function these games don't have, and one of the bigger things in my personal opinion, no matter what, people are going to get lost. They're going to get confused, and they're going to forget things. So you need to have something implemented to help them get back on track. You will commonly see this done in the form of an objectives tab. I'll give you 2 examples that handles objectives in 2 different ways, but each one is equally as viable as the other. Bendy and Ink Machine. If you need to remember what to do, you just pause the game. It's right there in the pause menu. You may also see games that bind the objectives tab to a separate button altogether, like tab or some sort of journal,
which is something that Amnesia does. It holds all of your written information in Daniel's journal. There's sections for notes, diaries, and mementos. Mementos are going to be your objectives.
Amnesia handles objectives in a more narrative-conscious way. It makes sense for Daniel to be writing things down after taking an amnesia potion and being an archaeologist, an academic, if you will. Even in a short game, objectives are a must. You cannot predict what a player will do, and you cannot assume that they can and will play through it all in one sitting. This is something that I can personally attest to in Garten of Banban 4, where we started and played I think about an hour, and then my friend Z had a live stream scheduled and had to bounce. Then life stuff happened and we couldn't get back in the game until like a few months later. An objectives tab really would have helped in trying to remember what I needed to do once I got back into the game. And the last thing I'll mention before we move on, another mechanic that these games do not have and that I would have liked to see is some sort of inventory system. As I said before, I get that these games are short, but also, as I said, you can't predict what might happen. I think I should have the option to at least be able to check what keycards I have on me.
Now, the drone. Needless to say, if your game is reliant on one mechanic, no matter how original it might be, that's not good. Indie game or not. If it's going to be the sole mechanic, I'd say it better be the most impressive mechanic I've ever seen in a video game. And I am sad to say, maneuvering a drone to hit buttons is not enough to make my top 10 list. If your goal is to try and make an immersive horror experience, you need to keep players from seeing the mechanics as mechanics. The second they see the strings and know how the game works, the illusion is broken. And I don't think there's a single person that sees the drone as more than just a game mechanic. That's not good. Here's an example. Amnesia: The Dark Descent. The sanity mechanic. We know it's a mechanic. We know that it does function, and it does something, but ultimately we don't know how it functions. We don't know what it does for us. All we know is that low is probably bad, and we should avoid getting too low by any means necessary. And no, I'm not going to tell you how it works. I'm not going to spoil that for you. Play the games. If you really want to know, Grip says it plenty of times in the interviews, link down below.
You need to keep the player from understanding its systems in a horror game. That will spell the death of your game and its presence. The moment that someone can figure out where the strings are and how to manipulate them, it's over. Obviously this applies to every single game, but when the focus is so hard on the payoff in a game, there isn't going to be much to talk about in terms of building up the game, is there?
Ordinarily, we're able to forgive seeing the mechanic if it functions well. Unfortunately, for games 1 through 4, the drone, again while original, is painfully slow. Pressing the button on the remote, waiting for the drone to turn, move, and reach its destination. I like that you're trying something new. I really do. But it's a really bad mechanic. Like in Garten 2. Why? Why 4 buttons here, and then follow it up with a long ass hallway with 3 more buttons? It's not fun, nor is it spooky. This is just tedious. Fortunately, in Garten 6, you increase the drone speed, so it actually works pretty well. And we'll talk about it later, but in Garten 7, you add onto the mechanic by adding a new way to control it. This is good improvement and a step in the right direction. I can't say it's good enough to change my stance on it yet, but you're getting there.
Now, that said, there are a lot of people that had gripes about the mechanic because they were being completely fucking stupid with how to maneuver the drone. If you have the drone against the wall, and you want to hit this button, why the fuck do you think just clicking here while your drone is still against the wall will work? Obviously, you need to fucking bring it to a point where it will actually hit the fucking button. Let's wake up a little bit here. Now for areas like here in Chapter 7's bar, I can understand the complaint a little bit more, cause yeah, bouncing off of objects trying to get to the button is fucking annoying.
I unfortunately don't have any helpful suggestions to improve this. Game mechanics and what makes them good is not my area of expertise. So I asked my friend what he would do, and he said, I don't know how to fix it. Oh. Sorry guys, I guess we're not too helpful here.
Just like with how to display objectives and whether to have the protagonist speak, gameplay is another massive topic of discussion with horror games. You have shooter survival gameplay like Resident Evil, which is topped with resource management, mostly. You have adventure gameplay where you just move through the environment until you reach the end, games like Outlast 1 and 2. You have the point-and-click survival gameplay like Five Nights at Freddy's. You have the brutal fuck up everything in sight gameplay like Doom. And you have the walking simulator mixed with puzzles gameplay like Amnesia and Soma. There's no specific formula for what makes a horror game engaging enough to play, and there's thousands of perspectives on what makes the most engaging gameplay in horror games. But the problem is that it's all subjective. For example, I said several times how highly I regard Amnesia and Soma, but I think Resident Evil 4 has the best gameplay overall. I think it's a near perfect mix of shooter, resource management, survival, and puzzle gameplay with horror elements that could make it scary if that kind of horror works on you. But some people can think that Outlast has the best gameplay, or Resident Evil 8, which can eventually just become a full-blown FPS. From Frictional games specifically, some prefer Penumbra Overture, some Amnesia the Dark Descent, and some people prefer Amnesia the Bunker. So I think it's incredibly difficult to definitively say what kind of gameplay is really engaging. So it won't be working from that angle, and I won't let my preference get in the way of my criticisms. Now that said, I can absolutely see why people wouldn't think that the gameplay in Garten of Banban is engaging or even fun to play. Much like Amnesia or Soma or Outlast, the game is very much like a walking simulator with some tasks so that the walking is not the only thing that you're doing. Let's talk about the gameplay itself. If I had to list one thing that I tend to look for in gameplay, no matter what game it is, it would probably be the freedom of choice. Now what do I mean by that? Let's look at Dishonored real quick. When you're not out assassinating the people that had a hand in the Empress's death, you're with the Loyalists at the Hound Pits pub. And something that you can do is, purely by accident, kill one of the Loyalists. This will result in a fail state because it's not something that you're supposed to do. However, the game still allows you to do this. Probably a better example is Outer Worlds. You can follow the plotline, or you can kill every single character that you come across, and the game accounts for this.
Please hold them. I need to explain this. The green.
Activating contingency plan DM-17. Captain is a psychopath.
This is what I mean by freedom of choice. It's allowing the player to do what they think they should be allowed to do. If you have a sword in this world, and you're allowed to equip it, then logic would suggest You're also allowed to swing it and kill whoever it hits. It's just a small thing that makes an unrealistic world feel more real, and therefore allows the player to be immersed. And unfortunately, there is absolutely no freedom of choice in these games. Though I can't exactly say that isn't expected, I still get disappointed when I see it happen. These games are entirely on rails, and you are meant to play the games while following a very specific path. Granted, allowing for detours for secrets, but in order to progress through the game, you are on rails. However, despite it being so structured, there are some really odd gameplay decisions that I just don't understand. What's the point of the broken antenna if you're going to immediately fix it? I mean, the antenna being broken is fine narratively, you just fell down what looks like a massive hole. But the antenna is the only thing that's damaged. You are completely fine. We talked about this here when we looked at mechanics, but yeah, again, why buttons, then long hallway, then more buttons. Then we have the classroom. I know some people had issues with this. I didn't, but that might just be me. No, what I had trouble with was catching the birds.
Grab it, Bowie.
God damn it! Stop pressing E when I have the bird in my hand.
I'm pretty sure we can chalk that up to a skill issue. And then we have a mini game after getting past Celine. I sure hope I don't have to do this again at a later point. So here's an example of that freedom of choice thing that I was talking about. I think I should be able to pick up this battery while Banban is still talking, but I can't. For some fucking reason, I can't pick up the fucking battery when I want to. I can pick up the other battery, but not this one. What the fuck? And I can't pick up a fucking crayon while he's talking. Are you fucking with me? Why? Why can't I just pick up the crayon? Come on, it's right there. Let me do it. Now, what the hell is this? No, seriously, what the hell is this actually supposed to be? Why are you making me do this minigame all the fuck over again? I just did it in the last game. Why am I doing it again in this game? Recycling gameplay. Huge negative. Absolutely huge negative. One of my biggest problems with Five Nights at Freddy's was the repetitive gameplay. And it's a problem here too. You did not need to make me do this. I mean, I get it. This is how you're supposed to open the outside door from the inside. Because for some reason in this backwards ass facility, completing a game with cannons gives anyone access to the observation room, which has the only button in the entire room that unlocks the outside door. I get what you're going for. Stinger is smart, he knows he has to do the minigame in order to get out of the room. But that's at the cost of making us play a minigame that we already played. And I think you could have come up with something else to convey that Stinger is smart and knows how to get out of his own room. I think we get the picture. 4 has essentially the same stuff that I talked about, so we can move on. So we are now left with the 2 broader gameplay pieces to talk about. We'll touch on this again in the horror section, but since it's gameplay, I can bring it up here. Chase sequences, since we just talked about repeated gameplay. Chasing, and oh boy, more chasing. I cannot properly explain to you how boring chases get once you've had enough of them. Especially when they really aren't all that intense. Outlast 1 makes use of the asylum's hallways and finite amount of places you can realistically go in hospital corridors and rooms, making the encounters fast-paced and more believable. Garten of Banban, you're running down impossibly sized corridors either in a straight line or at least a very linear path. And in regards to specifically Chapter 4, holy fuck, I know you guys were going for a vibe that this creature shakes the ground when it's chasing you, but I can't fucking see. And I mean, this thing is fucking ridiculous. It isn't even tense. Look at how long I wait for it to catch up to me. In Garten 6, they abandoned the chases altogether in favor of the fan favorite, running for no fucking reason. Actually, no, I shouldn't say that. There is one chase. It's by a naughty one after Dadadoo gets dragged away by mutated Nab-Nab. Which, you know, is a little odd considering the trailer for the game. You can see a segment where a bunch of them are chasing you in this little stairwell area. But in the actual game, this never happens. So, what's up with that, Ferris? This is me genuinely asking, because why the fuck would you have that in the trailer and not have it in the game? We'll come back to the chases in the horror section, but I want to say this here because this is relevant to gameplay. It seems fairly evident that they intend the player to be able to navigate these chases easily without being caught by the monster, perhaps as a way to combat frustration so the player doesn't die too much. I think that's a fair thing to get out of these chases, especially this one in Chapter 4, right in the beginning of the game. This is my personal opinion, not an objective statement. I think a better way to implement chases in a horror game, if your intent is to make it so the player doesn't die too much, I think a better way would be to design the chase and the monster in such a way that the player is never actually in any danger, but you make sure the player doesn't know that. We'll move on to something really fun to talk about, the boss fights. You know, I've been gaming for 20 plus years. I've seen a lot of boss fights. I've seen a lot of decent thematic fights, seen fights with charger enemies, seen fights that just get your blood pumping. I've seen fights get kinda intense when you don't expect them to. And I've also seen some straight fucking tough fights. And to be clear, I'm not going to ask for anything groundbreaking. I know they didn't have much to work with, but I'm putting fireworks on this thing's tongue. I'm making this thing run into fucking buttons. And the bird. Good God, the fucking bird. Guys, I'm just saying, if I'm physically in the fucking trees where we're told this safe zone is, and it still gets me, I think that's a fucking problem. If I'm licking the trunk of the tree and it still grabs me when it shouldn't because we're in the fucking trees, that's an issue. Come on, guys.
Player on their toes. The best thing then is for the player to have enough intense experiences to constantly fear another encounter. I think the most common error in horror games overall is seeing your monsters as gameplay devices. You can't just copy paste your monster encounters throughout. You have to have narrative connection, they have to have something unique about them, and you constantly have to think about how you introduce and how you forebode the different moments.
Alright, this is another really short one. In Garten 6, I really like the music. It's no Skyrim OST, but I like the music. That's it. That's all I got. Okay, if you're gonna go the immersive horror game route with no background music, at the very least, you need an ambient track of some kind. Sound design is important for video games and especially important for horror games.
Oh. You're in 0G in the game. You get into an airlock and it spins down, quiet again. Then you open the door and it's just like... And people are running in the room. They are just trying to get out of that room. It's so awesome. It was such a thrill for us because that was a great way to now realize that we can use sound even more.
Really, what I just said is the extent of my knowledge on sound related to video games. If you want to know more, it seems like the developer of Dead Space really knows his shit and focuses on it. Though I will point out, I do love that attention to sound is a common theme with these horror games, Amnesia, Dead Space. Just something I noticed. Anyway, since I don't have much to say, just listen to these two clips and notice the difference.
With it, what's next?
What's next is more horror, and we feel that horror genre is something really fun to explore because really it's the only genre in games that deal with emotion. I mean, in horror games you can sacrifice like gameplay enjoyment just to deliver an emotion. You can't do that in any other game genre, and it's really fun to explore that. So we're going to explore horror more, we're going to explore the survival horror formula more in the more game, and it's...
Alright, gentlemen. I like you guys, but I promise that I keep it real. I'm here to tell you how it is. Let's address the elephant in the room, and this is going to be where my criticisms will be the harshest. It's something that I heard from others, and I find it a very valid criticism. These games, despite being marketed as horror games, are far from scary. Let's talk about it. These games are criminally lacking the horror elements necessary to make this experience be spooky. These are supposed to be horror games. There is absolutely nothing scary about these games, and I feel very confident saying that objectively. I can't even be charitable and say that they at least try with horror elements because they just don't have enough present, so I can't make that claim. Now, these guys are not completely unfamiliar with the genre or some of the concepts of horror. For instance, they seem to understand the idea of making the setting be a somewhat relatable area.
Well, the idea was to have a setting that most people would be able to relate to and then put our own twist on it. Things that are relatable to anyone and everyone could be associated with their childhoods. We've had this idea for a while now, and a correct implementation is what we needed. After a lot of brainstorming and thinking, a light bulb appeared over our heads, where the idea came through.
A kindergarten. Most people have been to kindergarten, and therefore most people would feel uncanny in a twisted kindergarten, and that formed the basis of our game. After deciding what kind of vibe we wanted for the game, which was a mix of unsettling and liminal, we decided to move on to the design of the character.
Now, you guys are spot on with having the setting be relatable. That's super important for a horror environment, but here's the thing. You also mentioned the uncanny and twisted and unsettling kindergarten thing, and I have to say, for at least Garten 1, that's just not it. There's a lot of contributors to the effect of the uncanny valley, and while there's no specific formula, we can look at a lot of examples of games that have it. Now, while the kindergarten is very empty, which is undeniably strange, there's an asterisk to that. We don't know when we came here. We don't know if it's in the middle of the day. We don't know if it's dark out. We have no indication of what time of day it is to sort of springboard the idea of, hey, this is fucking weird. Because maybe we showed up at a time where it isn't weird. Like the middle of the night, where no one would be at the fucking kindergarten. Now, Opila being there can be seen as odd, but that's immediately negated by having her task here and have us collect eggs. She's supposed to be here. For some fucking reason. I can think of a change that you could have done to fix this. Don't even have to render a skybox. The front doors, instead of these solid steel doors that we can't see through, have doors that you can see through and put a diffused light source behind it so it looks like the light is coming in from the outside. Then we can sort of get the idea of, hey, this is a kindergarten in the middle of the day and there's no one here. That's pretty fucking strange. Now, something that you'll notice with some of these other games is that the uncanny valley effect really takes place with one small detail: the lack of lighting. When we think of restaurants or workplaces, unless you specifically work night shifts, we typically think of them when the lights are on and we can see everything. Kinda like how we can see everything here. But once you turn the lights off, it sort of plays into that idea of seeing things that aren't there in the dark. Without going on a tangent, I think it was a mistake to allow the lights to turn on. A lot of people are scared of the dark. So just having the power not be on, making use of a flashlight will be enough to make them unsettled. And just by doing that, I think you will fix a lot of the issues that you have about the game not being scary. Because that will give you the shadows and the angles that would cause that uncanny effect. You'd be surprised how effective turning the lights off can be. Now that said, I do need to acknowledge this little tidbit. If you, the person watching this, want to make the game too spooky for you and you think these games aren't dark enough for you, drop the lighting quality setting. Here, I'll show you. And while that does darken the environment so it can be scary, my argument is that you shouldn't have to. Also, you don't have a flashlight, so you can't see things. Sacrifices, am I right? Bringing it back to the Uncanny Valley. The Uncanny Valley relies on familiarity. And that's why I think a kindergarten is a little harder to pull off in terms of setting. Because yes, while it is familiar to people who have gone to kindergarten, a lot of that familiarity kind of disappears once you've had enough time outside of the building. As you get older, kindergarten is a lot less relevant to you, whereas a restaurant or an amusement park will remain relevant no matter how old you get. For example, I went to kindergarten. Couldn't tell you what it was like now. Hell, so much time has passed, I can guarantee that the building is no longer the same on the inside. Meanwhile, restaurants, amusement parks, houses, factories, places of business will always be around us, and therefore we're a little bit more familiar with them. I get what you're saying. I really do. But I think you chose the least relatable option. At least for your older audience. Like, I remember high school a lot more than I do kindergarten. I remember middle school more than kindergarten. But I get it. Now, as it's been stated several times on this channel, horror is quite subjective. You can never create an environment, make a monster, do anything that scares everyone. However, there are still elements that we can point to as things that work in building an environment that effectively scares the player. Elements that are just not present in this game series. At least not right away. It is super important to understand that there is no perfect formula for what works in making a horror game be scary. But working with what's generally understood as good has a better chance of working as opposed to not using anything at all. What are the core, key elements needed for a horror story? Pause the video now and make your guesses. You need tension, atmosphere, pacing, and arguably the most important thing, immersion, which we already went over. And unfortunately, these games do not have the tension that they need. They have no horrific atmosphere or environments. They don't have any scares to be paced out. And there are too many things that just break the immersion, so that doesn't have a chance to work. And like I said, we already talked a good deal about the immersion breaking stuff, but here's one more example for this section. Another super unrealistic part of the games that just stick to the back of our minds. If we are still human, there is zero chance that our legs would not be liquid from falling that far up. Our legs would be broken and the bird would eat us. Ain't no fucking way we're walking that off. Now, having no fall damage and letting us jump off of the top of the stairs and hit the ground with no damage, that's fine. That's an allowance that we can make for the video game to be a video game. Same with weapons never jamming in Call of Duty games, or respawning when you die. But you're telling me that, narratively, we survived this elevator fall and this jump into the bird boss area. This jump is not the same as this jump. Like I said, no fucking shot. But my point here will tie us back to immersion in horror. Now, that doesn't necessarily mean that impossible distances and immersion breaking stuff is always terrible. And really, if you learn how to really tap into the weirdness of the impossible, like non-Euclidean spaces, I think you can make something really interesting. Non-Euclidean, that's how H.P. Lovecraft describes Cthulhu's home. Put extremely simply, it's impossible geometry. Some very famous examples of this are some art pieces by
M.C. Escher.
God fucking damn it, yes. Could you imagine an entire facility that looked like this? There's actually a
pretty recent video by Corridor Crew that looks into this, and I think our main man here gives a pretty good example of a horror setting using this idea. I'll very briefly play this here.
Conventional geometry has laws, like all the angles of a triangle add up to 180 degrees. Parallel lines will never meet, and the shortest distance between 2 points is a straight line. But in non-Euclidean geometry, we decide to take one of those laws and have it be broken. And suddenly it leads to all sorts of weird results. There is one idea from spherical non-Euclidean geometry that stood out to me, and it's the paradox of the curved straight line. Let's look at a conventional straight line. In Euclidean geometry, this straight line will go on forever and ever, and it will never intersect itself. It's a straight line, right? It doesn't turn back on itself. But if we enter a non-Euclidean world, specifically a spherical non-Euclidean world, that straight line ends up back where it started. This isn't the same thing as actually walking around a sphere. We just have to portray it that way for the sake of illustrating it. Now, this reminds me of being in a nightmare where I run and I run and I run and I just end up right back where I started. You see that light in the tunnel in the distance and you never get any closer, no matter how fast you sprint. That's very stressful, very dramatic, perfect for a horror film.
Go watch the fucking video. It's good. I got sidetracked a little bit there. I'm not apologizing. That's how my brain works. Anyway, like I said before, there aren't enough words to accurately describe how important immersion is for horror games. And all of the stuff that we went over is why the immersion is basically non-existent in these games. And unfortunately, I think in order to fix those things, you'd have to completely change the games and have to remake them from scratch. So let's talk about the other stuff, and the tension and atmosphere and pacing. That's all stuff that goes hand in hand with each other. Here's an example with Resident Evil 7. It's a rundown, seemingly abandoned house with creaks and groans, and you find your wife locked in a cell. The two of you try to escape, but she gets taken. You explore the ground floor and find nothing, but go back to the stairs and you're greeted with this. Pitch black void, you can't see shit. But Mia could be down there. You have to brave the dark. After all, you're here to save her. But there's just one thing. You can feel the amount of tension just standing at the top of the stairs. Do this with headphones on and the lights off and oh, I am the fucking opposite of scared of the dark and I don't want to go down there. And you see an element that we talked about with Five Nights at Freddy's. You keep the visibility low or impaired in some way. You can't see what's down there, but you have to go forward. Let's look at another example, Poppy Playtime. It has the same idea, kind of. The lighting is low enough to where you can see things, but it's still pretty fucking dark all around, and it gives an unsettling environment. And then first Huggy is there, and then he isn't. And then you notice subtle things which add to that tension buildup. You aren't shown that he's dangerous, but he's hiding from me. That isn't exactly comforting. And then you see that, oh, that's his arm, and I need to go that way. God damn it. Let me just get these blocks in, and oh, he's watching me. Dude, that shit is fucking uncomfortable. And then... well, this looks a little familiar, doesn't it? I don't really want to go over there, but I guess I have to. And another reason why this thing with Huggy works so well is because when he comes out of the shadows, you are uncomfortably close to him. And that can create that brief sense of panic. That, oh my god, I need to go, too close, which can really help to jumpstart the tension with this enemy that really isn't moving all that fast. And the reason why this stuff works so well is because there's this constant buildup in the atmosphere that you almost don't notice. In Resident Evil, it starts when you enter the house and you click the flashlight on. And Poppy, it starts when you open the door and see Huggy. Payoffs require buildup. Resident Evil 7, the payoff is going down the stairs. Poppy is walking down the hall. You see it in the very beginning of Poppy 3 as well, and actually this is a really good example of horror with just simple changes. Here you have a nice, happy, bright cast of characters, looks like an actual show, and then...
us go to sleep, Catnap.
We need it, Catnap. Please help us. Sleep, sleep, sleep.
Oh. Extremely simple change. They're just smiling, but fuck me, I don't want anything to do with it. The build-up is the entirely normal situation, the show, and then the payoff is that whiplash-inducing super fucking sudden change to them smiling when this character appears. That turns the normal to abnormal, and that can become scary. Am I making sense? The entire point with atmosphere in a lot of these horror games is constantly having the player feel uncomfortable. Now, you do need areas that allow them to breathe, because otherwise the player will become desensitized to the atmosphere and the scares will no longer work. So you need to periodically allow them to calm down and breathe, and then you can fuck with them by making them go right back into it. I mean, you're trying to scare these people. You kinda have to mess with them a little bit. Now, let's look at Garten of Banban. Garten 1, the only horror element really present is the chase sequence, because the building is well lit, you can see everything. The only time that can potentially get the player's heart pumping, there is a very brief moment where a player can feel uncomfortable when you look and Opila is suddenly on the lift and is coming over to you, when she was originally stationary. Why is she moving now? So I can see that. This is probably the subjective part of horror where it doesn't really work for me, but I can at least see it. I think that's good. So aside from that, the only time that can potentially get the player's heart really pumping is when you extend the walkway and Opila chases you. Now, the player can trick themselves into thinking that they need to fucking move because Opila can just climb back up, which will work at first, but as soon as the player realizes that won't happen, that tension will disappear. Which again, just leaves us with the chase. Now with Jumbo Josh, in theory it could work because you're just shrouded in darkness now, which would typically mean that you can't see, but you can see Jumbo Josh very clearly. Personally, I think I would have done something with maybe his face kind of coming out of the shadow where you can only sort of see him. I don't know. All I really know is that it didn't work for me. And from what I've seen, it didn't really work for anyone else in terms of scaring them. Garten 2, you do have dark areas, but the reason why it doesn't work here is because it isn't dark because the lights are off. It's dark because it's a bottomless pit. And it doesn't matter because we're not going into the bottomless pit. We're going into the well-lit room surrounding the pit, so we do not have tension buildup. Then we come to the maintenance room, which is laid out like a warehouse rather than a maintenance room. It's dark in here, but rather than have Nab stalk us in the darkness with some kind of subtle, weird sound that would maybe unnerve some players and have them steer clear of places where they hear the noise, or investigate and have Nab kill them because the noise means he's there, it's just another chase sequence back to the starting point. Next, we meet up with Opila in the room at the end of the hall. Why we go over here specifically, narratively, I have no idea, but we do this, and we're met with a very dark room. Alright, we're getting somewhere. And then we see the eyes. Okay, that's another step in the right direction. And then we get chased. Again. Into the well-lit hallway. So much for the darkness. I'm really not sure if I should categorize the classroom part as horror. I don't think I can, because you just die if you get the answers wrong. That's not really a horror thing. And Opila ignores you if you collect all the tiny birds, which means the last thing is at the end, when all of the doors open. Now, this moment I can see to be a spike in tension for people, because so far, aside from Banban, all of the characters that we've interacted with have been hostile to us in one way or another. So this moment, where all the doors open, that can serve as an oh shit moment, and for a split second, you can feel like all of them are coming for you. But instead, it's just Bambolina chasing you, and Josh busting through all the doors. Somehow, I guess the walls are hollow, which means this is another chase sequence.
And I think that's it. Oh, no, wait. I forgot about good old Zolphius over here. I'm so sorry. While the initial existence of the void doesn't do anything to build tension, this is kinda creepy. It's just a giant face that is fucking massive, and it wasn't there before, but here it is. We don't know anything about it. It doesn't really do anything, but yeah, I can see that being a little unsettling. And we don't know anything about it, so fear of the unknown has a chance to kick in. Good job. Garten 3, we have the dark, empty void again. We went over that, and after that we have... Shit, hang on. Down here somewhere. Hang on. Ah, got it! Here we go. At the end of the fucking game, when we're running away from Demon Banban on the back of a mutant bird. Only puzzles, dream sequences, and busy work from start up until the boss fight. Please understand that I'm not saying this stuff to bring you guys down. This is simply just what I'm finding. That's insane. A horror game with almost no horror elements present at all? That would be one of those bad things that we hear about. And we also have this, which I've seen before from Resident Evil 7. It's a DLC game where you're this dude trapped in a room by Marguerite, and you have to make sure that everything is in its proper place when she comes back, otherwise you'll be punished. But you don't really get the same vibe here, so it doesn't really work as a horror thing. Instead, it's more like, well, I guess I'm here now, which apparently is a very common theme in this particular game. Stinger puts you to sleep, and you wake up in a completely different room with no idea how you fucking got there. The rooms are locked. In Josh's room, the keycard is locked in a closet, and Toadster's room doesn't have a keycard. So how the fuck did you get in these rooms? If you don't have the keycard, Stinger probably doesn't either. Anyway, chapter 4. You get chased in the beginning. You very briefly get chased by Bittergiggle. I can see how this vent game could be tense, but could is the key word here. You watch another creature fight, have another boss fight, then for a fresh change, Bittergiggle tells his joke and the naughty ones escape. Now, this works because you don't know a whole lot about them. All you know is that if they escape, shit's gonna be super fucked. Oh shit, they're escaping. Shit's gonna be super fucked. So, that's something. But then you get chased again for a reason I really don't understand. Why is Bittergiggle chasing me now? What the fuck did I do? Shouldn't he be escaping too? Now, Garten 6 we get a bit better.
That's our ticket out of here, partner.
The voices in the darkness. That's not bad. That can be pretty fucking unsettling. You know that you're surrounded by these things that you just can't see. Creepy. And this here with the blue pig? I guess this is creepy with it sneaking up on you. Not a fan of the forced jump scare or the fake death, but that's really it. And let's see here. We get this light puzzle, and then we wait while Sir Dadadoo hits us with a 0 out of 10 Banban impersonation. Definitely rolled a 1 for the deception check. We meet up with Banban, watch Dadadoo kick ass and take names and yell at us, and then he just leaves. So, yeah. Then we get the power station. It's tense, but not because it's horror. It's tense because it's a timed management thing. Then we get the bird boss fight, and we'll talk about this. And then we go get the scepter.
Points for voices in the darkness, it's better than chases, so that's above 3, but once again, very lacking in the horror elements department. Guys, I really hate to do this, but I need to. Let's look at your warning card when you start up the game. How many of these are present in the games? Flashing lights. Where? Name a single time in any of these 5 games where the lights are flashing, and them turning on is not flashing. No. Frightening imagery. No. Loud noises. Not even fucking close. No. Everything that you're warned about, it's not there. I'm at a point where I am genuinely wondering what horror games you guys have played in the past to consider these games to be part of the genre. Frightening imagery. You don't have mutilated bodies, you don't have body parts laying around, you don't have this. You don't even have any blood anywhere. There is actively no negative stimuli to suggest to us that this place is wrong. This facility is wrong. That this isn't a place that we would want to be in. So much so that a character asks us to come back and visit. We should not want to be in this facility. You don't want to stay in Mount Massive Asylum. You don't want to stay in the actual Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. No, you don't. Shut the fuck up. You don't want to stay in the Brandenburg Castle. You don't want to stay in the Poppy Factory. You don't want to be in the Baker Mansion. You don't want to be in the Spencer Mansion. These are places and situations that you do not want to be in. At all. Quite seriously, the only horror element that I can consistently find in these games are the chase sequences. That is terrible. As anyone who has played Outlast 2 can attest to, chase sequences get old really fucking quick. If the only horror element your game has is an abundance of chase sequences, you're doing something wrong. You should never have chases be the sole thing that you rely on to get that tension out of a player. Because we very quickly go from, oh god, they're chasing me, to I'm fucking running again. And even then, Outlast 2 does better than Garten of Banban in this regard because it still has more horror elements going on, not just chases.
The game's horror seems to rely heavily on jump scares, chase sequences, we'll talk about those, gratuitous gore, and grotesque imagery.
We get desensitized to it. That's why you want to avoid repeating gameplay. Look at Amnesia again. One of the sections that anyone who has ever played it on YouTube remembers from that game is the water monster. Do you want to know how many times you encounter it? Once. Do you want to know how many times you actually get chased in that game? Twice. Once by the water monster, once by the shadow. That's it. The water monster is at the beginning, the shadow is towards the end. Look at Resident Evil 7. Some of the more memorable moments that you'll hear about will be the old house with Marguerite or Lucas's house. And those two areas are very different from each other. Honestly, if you wanted to get something out of the player in Garten of Banban 1, I would have had Opila look at us at some point while getting the eggs. There's a lot that can be said about subtlety in horror games. Even something that's just staring at you can sometimes be unsettling enough to start building the tension that you need. I think the best advice that I can give is when making a horror game, you should try to make something that scares you. Because if you can't scare yourself with your game, how can you expect anyone else to be scared? And that's a more common mindset than you might think.
But how does someone create a scary video? A medium that is already restricting in itself. Well, the simplest solution that I could find is you have to create something that scares you.
One of the games that I was really influenced in was Silent Hill 2 had made, or Silent Hill 1 even, had made great marks on me. There was just something about that game in how it frightened me that we were trying to recreate.
One of the main concepts behind these mascot games, and why I don't really think this is a parody of the genre, Five Nights at Freddy's, Poppy, Bendy, Tattletale, Indigo Park, is the idea that these creatures that you see are not supposed to be alive, and yet they are. Tattletale. Part of the horror is realizing that these toys are sentient and Mama is alive and is pretty damn lethal. You don't rightly know how, but fuck it, whatever. Five Nights at Freddy's. The animatronics go from machines looking for people and following the rules of the building to suits haunted by the souls of the dead. Bendy. Well-known, drawn, and beloved characters from a popular animated show are brought to life by way of this weird machine and shit goes horribly wrong. Poppy and Indigo Park? Still working on that one, but they're definitely alive, definitely moving, definitely fucking bleed, and are definitely lethal, and should not be. Indigo Park actually shows this with the smashed, broken bird, and then the creature bird. Garten of Banban, that idea is immediately negated because these creatures are supposed to be alive. They were meant to be living from the start. Now, if you went the mad scientist route and had the creatures made out of actual people, not just genomes like my friend and I first thought, then I could kinda see that working, and can have a potential of being scary since it's a horror theme. Horrific science experiments using human beings and perverting them into horrifying, uncontrollable, very lethal monsters. But the problem right now is that we have no idea why these things are being created in the first place beyond the Bring a Friend Day. The biggest question that we have to ask, and have no answers for 7 chapters in, is why do these things exist? Why are these things alive? FNAF, they're alive because of the dead kids and also Remnant. The Souls thing is implied by the 3rd game, the Remnant thing is talked about in the books, so I'm really not sure about that one. Bendy. You learn why Joey Drew is bringing these characters to life over time as you explore and find audio logs. Poppy and Tattletale, I got nothing. I have to ask the same questions for these. I have no fucking idea why this digital hellspawn Furby is alive. Garten of Banban. We get a lot of lore about the characters themselves and some of the events that take place down here. But we still have no earthly idea why these fucking things were created in the first place. And as I said, we're 7 chapters in. You need to start giving some answers in that regard. There are things that we can make allowances for. The Givanium being the element that makes these things be alive. How the Wall Rider is even a thing to begin with. How the radio towers cause these twisted hallucinations. Those are things that we can make allowances for. Not explaining why your creatures are created to begin with is not one of those allowances. We need to know why these things exist. Why? Why? You cannot leave that unanswered if you want your story to work, and I think by now we should have more information than we do. Like I said, the questions that ask why are the most important questions to answer. And I think an important part of this is the fact that we don't really see any stakes of any kind. We see these creatures fight each other and just absolutely fuck each other up, and some crazy things happen. But really, they get through just fine. We don't see any kind of real tragedy until around the end of 4 going into 6. This is the very first sort of death in the game that we're exposed to. Sure, the creatures transform into horrifying monsters when given too much Givanium. But we're shown that they'll be just fine despite what should be a fatal action, eliminating that stake. Nab turned into a crazy spider monster. Well, just squish him. He'll be perfectly fine. That said, pretty noticeable improvement killing the queen. At least we're all assuming that she's dead. A character that was super kind to you. That adds some tragedy and sort of pulls you back into the mindset of, oh shit, things are actually super fucked here. And I will emphasize the importance of character deaths in these games and point to some of our examples. Five Nights at Freddy's 1, the phone guy, Bendy, Boris. Deaths serve as a way to sort of ground the player and show them that there are stakes and consequences of not being careful in this and that. And I'd argue that it can be pretty effective and sometimes even tug at your heartstrings a little bit. Hell, just look at Soma.
Everything right? Thank you, Catherine. Wait. Am I already here?
Hello?
Who is that? Mark?
No, we haven't met before.
Is this Mark?
I think we're safe.
Oh, I was so worried something had gone wrong.
What's your name?
Robin Bass, Theta Field Service Technician.
Nice to meet you, Robin. How did you get here?
I got scanned, like the others. And then I killed myself. At least I think so. I can't remember that part.
How does that work? Did dying get you into the Ark?
Wow, you're definitely not from Theta. Let me guess, Omicron? Wasn't sure Catherine would be able to scan you guys. You're lucky. There was a lot of talk about this at Theta. The idea is, when you're activated in the Ark, there's basically two of you, right? One human, one living scan in the Ark. You don't want your copy to survive you. You yourself want to survive on the Ark. If the human you dies before the scan is initiated, or closely after, you yourself would live on in the Ark. Amazing, right?
Did Catherine put you up to this? Killing yourself?
Catherine Chun? No. I don't think you understand. She just did scans and put them into the Ark. I hope I get to meet her soon so I can apologize. She always got into trouble with Strawmeyer when someone killed themselves.
I think she's okay with it.
Where is everyone? I thought there would be like 40 or 50 people here.
I don't know. I'll let you know if I see anyone. Robin, I'm not sure how to say this.
What?
This is...
Yeah?
Pretty amazing, right? I mean, the Ark.
Yeah, it's great. Catherine and the guys have really pulled through. They saved us all.
See you later.
Will do.
I'll be going now.
Let me know if you find anyone else. Let me go! Stop it! Please!
I need it. Why? I was okay. I was happy.
You have to kill this human that's being kept alive by the WoW to turn the power back on. If you want to go the easy path, you have to put this robot through extreme pain and listen to the screams as you open the doors.
What's wrong with you? Everything. You will die with super.
These are all powerful moments. For 6 games, these creatures do not die, no matter what happens to them. So all tension and suspense and emotional moments from these things getting into fights with each other is negated because they'll be just fine. Now that said, it also needs to be mentioned that a tiny bit of the horror could be from the realization that if you ever did have to fight these things, there's essentially no way to win because they just won't die. You're screwed. But you can just knock them out and escape, so it's fine. They're very susceptible to fireworks, it turns out. I mean, I would assume that getting squished on the floor by a giant fist with blood on it would do something, but I guess not. And you know, having everyone be fine after that massive dog pile, I can't even guess at what we're supposed to think happened there. Like, guys, I get that you have a story that you want to tell, but you need to remember, you are creating in the horror genre. Death is a vital part of that genre. If nothing ever dies, then what are the stakes? Why should we care? I'll just go grab my child, who will very likely still be alive because nothing ever dies, and these creatures can do whatever. Death is a part of the genre for a reason. It creates impact, it creates tension, it creates suspense, and it can serve to ground the player in the world. You need to protect Ashley because she can fucking die. That creates stakes, which in turn can create tension, which, as discussed, is vital for horror. That's why you need to protect Ashley, but you don't need to protect Elizabeth. BioShock Infinite is not a horror game. We have 2 unconfirmed deaths. I say unconfirmed because, like I said, nothing ever dies. Case in fucking point is Banban. You were teased in 7's trailer that, yes guys, he's definitely out for the count this time. Except not really, cause you see him again in the Garten 8 trailer. Guys, the death thing aside, if you're going to tease that Banban is dead in 7's trailer, don't reveal that they're fine in the trailer for the next game. Because now we know they're fine and right back to no fucking stakes. Ah, but Bowie, you're not supposed to see the trailer before playing Garten of Banban 7. You know full goddamn well that some people are going to watch the trailer before playing Chapter 7. I can say this because that's what I did, and I'm not the only one. Now, speaking of Chapter 7, we are getting very close to talking about it, but before we do, there's just one more thing that I want to talk about here, and it really warrants its own section. I'm gonna do something that is frighteningly unfair, and that is pinning this game series against a company who I consider to be one of the very best in the horror genre. But I'm doing it because I think you gentlemen can learn a lot from this, and looking at everything that I show on your own. And funnily enough, comparing this series solely to The Dark Descent is a bit more fair than you might realize. For instance, how many of you knew that when Grip and Jens started making Amnesia: The Dark Descent, it was a team of 4 people? A team of 4 people that, aside from Grip and Jens, never met each other.
At the time when we started making Amnesia, the team was 4 people. It was I who did programming, design mostly. Then the other guy who co-founded Frictional Games, Jens, he did sounds and also some programming. We had another tech programmer and the 3D artist. So 4 people in total, and that was basically the entire team. And apart from that, we also had some outsourcers like a musician and some firms that were doing 3D models for us. But overall, like just us 4 people for most of the development. I think we added 1 person over development, but that was it. So a very small team. None of us were working at an office. We were all working from home. We actually never met at all, except for me and Jens. The team never met during any time of the production of Amnesia, which I think is not how it's normally done.
Only a slightly uneven playing field with just a few more people. But then it goes back to being unfair when you throw in the rest of the context. Frictional Games started with their Penumbra tech demo, showing off a game engine that Grip developed from scratch. And when it got a massive amount of downloads, they created Penumbra Overture. Fast forward a couple of years, with a team of 4, they started work on Amnesia. In contrast, I have no idea what Ferris and Geppo's amount of experience is outside of what they might have learned from the games they developed before. Don't know if they have any degrees in anything related to game design, don't know what their majors are. So, for all I know, this might be an avalanche of an unfair comparison, but I'm still going to do this for the reasons that I said earlier. If anyone has seen some of my videos before, it should be no secret that I hold Amnesia: The Dark Descent as one of the best in terms of horror, and that is based solely on the amount of work that Frictional put into the game and the approach that they took to make it scary. It makes the most sense to me, and it's the style of horror that I appreciate the most, because it primarily makes the player scare themselves, which I find fascinating. And I believe that Amnesia did about the best that it could in terms of creating an environment that would make just about anyone not want to play the game anymore. Which, in my humble opinion, oddly enough, should be the kind of feeling that you get when playing a horror game. That's what you want. You want players to be so scared that they don't want to finish the game. That means you've succeeded. When players get scared, that's a good thing. Looking at you, Capcom. Both Garten of Banban and Amnesia do very similar things. You're solving puzzles, avoiding enemies, navigating the environments, meeting new characters, and trying to get to an end goal. But you can very plainly see how different these things are executed, and that's due to how Frictional developed Amnesia.
Can you kind of talk about how you use the art direction and gameplay to give that horror feeling?
Oh, a huge topic here. I think, okay, I'm just gonna be quick here. First of all, the thing is that we try and keep everything in the player's mind. Show as little as possible, and also let the player do as little as possible. Because if you're like shooting stuff all the time, that's your main activity. You're not gonna focus on some weird sound. So if your entire focus is just focusing on weird sounds, you get a different kind of experience. You're really like minimizing the impressions that the player has. Sensory deprivation almost, with just the small sounds and ambient tunes and stuff like that. That's a big point. And also we have this interaction thing. It's interesting. I think someone, was it PC Format or UK, something like that? They call the game, like Anders has some headline like Desktop Simulator 2000. And that's basically our game. I mean, it's not fun to play in any way or other than like messing around with the physics. There's not like a shooter where you can just put everything, put some enemies in, and then you have the game. We need to build environments and use this physical interaction to get anywhere. So that's a big of the gameplay. We don't have any like, this is the fun core, but we make like a holistic approach. So that's important. Then it's also the entire, that we don't have any repetition. You don't die in Amnesia. I had in Frictional, we still made a scary game, but I think one of the things with Amnesia is that you can just go on and on. You never have to repeat yourself. You're never stuck. You can just, even if you're bad at games, my father can play our game. I mean, that's saying a lot.
He makes an emphasis on limiting what the player is able to do so they can focus on the horror stuff, the environments, the sounds, the ambient noises, not focusing on what the action is. Garten of Banban does limit what you do, but it does not seem to be in the interest of having you focus on sounds and the environment. For instance, in Amnesia, the amount of information that Frictional gives you is about as minimal as they could go, even going so far as to mislead you just to make you think in a certain way.
If I'm not mistaken, it was long ago since I went through all of this, there's a hint that says, if you go too insane, monsters are gonna have an easier way of finding you. This is a lie. There's no logic at all like that in the game, but we're planting an idea into the player. What really is happening in the sanity system is that it's a meter. It goes down as you're looking at certain things and as the player is in the dark for too long. If it hits certain levels, we're gonna play certain effects. There's a library of what we call sanity effects that just plays up randomly when you're at a certain level. Say if you're below 0.5 insanity, certain effects are gonna come online and so on. Then if you reach 0, you come to the end state where you collapse, you go up and regain some sanity. For the player, they see it as a fight of remaining sane, But in reality, the game always makes sure to have them at a certain spot. So you can really just play the game in any way you like, almost, and you're gonna have the same amount of insanity drop, for the game as a whole. But players are not gonna notice that. So they're playing the game based on totally different rules from what there really is underlying this gameplay loop.
And it certainly works really well. When you play Amnesia for the very first time on a blind run, you don't know how the sanity system works, and the information that you get tells you that something bad will happen if it gets too low. They intentionally hide the mechanic to maximize the potential of making the players scare themselves. This brings us back to Garten of Banban's drone. We know exactly how the mechanic works, what it's there for, and we're told why it exists. There is no mystery, there is no guessing, there's nothing hidden. This, topped with the environments, does not present a situation where players will scare themselves or get scared by anything.
I think it's extremely important that in order for horror to be effective, you have to establish a relationship with the player. They have to care about the character that they're playing as. When we started doing the game, we were really wanting to do a horror simulator. We wanted to make like the whole gameplay and scene that the player was captured in, all of that should combine into be a horror experience. It shouldn't just be a shooting gallery that's also frightening. It should be the whole point and focus should be on frightening the player. You have to know why you are doing something, and you have to sort of agree to doing that. Say, for example, that you're playing what's supposed to be a horror game, and your character is an army grunt. Yes, sir. Yes, I'm gonna go in here and do that. That's gonna be so different playing that character from playing someone who feels like a normal person who's over their head in dangers and whatnot and can barely handle it. That's the sort of relationship you have to establish. Going into Rebirth, that's gonna be even more important.
Mother of God, what's happened here?
On top of that, you also need to make sure that you have a storyline that the player can hook into. There needs to be a sort of narrative drive. They need to know why they're going somewhere. They need to share the goals for the characters.
My most precious chamber, Daniel, and it lies well beyond the refinery. In fact, it lies beneath the very stone of Brennenburg.
By sharing these things, the player gets more emotionally attached, and then when actually horrible things happen to that character, the player is gonna care more. What I want to do going forward in horror games is to try and emulate not just a carnival attraction, but I want to emulate the movie like, say, The Exorcist. The horror is not just the jump scares, but it's the whole narrative. It's on a much deeper level. That's sort of something that lasts after you've seen it, that affects you more deeply. If you have some sort of reductionistic view on it, it's, oh, there's a scary girl and there's some scary sightings and so on. And if you just try and do a movie that has that, you get a bad horror movie because you're not understanding what makes The Exorcist special. The Exorcist is about a mother that's about to lose her child. It's about a priest losing their faith. It's about people being confronted with worst of their nightmares. It's about losing control. It's also anchored slightly, depending on your belief structure and so on, in reality. And all of that makes for a really disturbing experience.
So the really big things to discuss here are topics that Grip brought up during these interviews, particularly the Ars Technica ones. They're really good, by the way. Links down below. Go watch them. So, the questions that you need to ask yourselves when developing these games is, beyond the idea of a parent looking for a child, what are the themes to your story, and how are you getting those across to the player?
Is it a situation where we are simply only focusing on the moment-to-moment stuff and not seeing the big question? You guys have a rule where you don't answer lore or game-related questions. My 2 cents, you might want to start. I think another big thing to note is, again going back to approach, how Frictional presents everything. Instead of mechanics, they try to give you stakes.
If I say that you have a game where there's monsters that are gonna eat you, and if you get eaten, you have to start all over. Okay, shit, I care about not being eaten on a mechanical level. I don't want to do that. But if you have a game that says you are ill, and you might get more ill if you get into certain situations. The only reason that you would care is that if you actually care about the character and you don't want them to be more ill, you need to have some sort of overarching narrative goals that means that, oh shit, in order to carry these things out, I need to get hold of my current illness. Otherwise, I can see that further down the line, given a bunch of narrative and story bits, I need to stay healthy. Obviously, this is like, shit, this is hard, right? So why not just throw the player into creepy things and make scary pop-ups? That's been done. Like that's just gonna be another horror game that's already been made. We want to try and go where games have not gone before. Try and like think about, okay, what would be an interesting journey for the player? What would be an interesting experience? And trying to emulate that in a game. And similarly to Soma, where we said, yeah, we're gonna explore consciousness in a game. If we manage that, that's gonna be what says if the game is a success or not. And in Rebirth, we're gonna have, for instance, an illness, and we're gonna have other things connected to this illness that are not obviously gameplay related.
Hell, they even take care of simple things like giving a reason for why you can't just leave the castle. The shadow won't let you. Why can't you just leave the school? You're tied to finding your kid? Then have a pop-up. I can't leave. That would be enough. As I said, you can see the differences between these two games. It's night and day. Amnesia uses very low lighting, has a huge emphasis on audio, constantly keeps the player on edge with massive amounts of negative stimuli, and they dress the narrative in a way where they have you come to your own conclusion of what the right choice is. They explored this massive moral question of what is good and what is evil. And it's designed to make you think about that, and it's fucking fascinating. Garten of Banban has a story to tell, but it's incomplete. And that's a really important thing to remember throughout this critique. I could be horribly wrong on several things, because the series has not concluded. I would hope that I am correct given how much fucking time I spent on this, but it's still a high possibility. Now before we end here, I want to mention that there is a blog post by Grip written 9 years after the release of Amnesia talking about 9 things they learned about the genre of horror. I'm not going to read it here because this video is long enough as it is, but I will link it down below. I will send the link directly to you, Ferris, if you want to look at it. And I'll probably read the whole thing on the second channel at some point. But I do highly recommend looking at it because I do think it offers some extremely helpful insight. I guess ultimately what I'm trying to say here is that with everything we talked about and went over in mind, and everything that we know about the genre, I'm not sure what your goal with these titles was. And like I said, this will be the harshest section. This is not a horror environment. This is not a setting that will trick a player into scaring themselves. There are no well-placed jump scares, and there are no themes that we can pick up on. These don't present themselves as horror experiences. My frame of reference for horror games are environments like you see right now: Amnesia, Outlast, Poppy, Indigo Park, Fear, Phasmo, Resident Evil 7, dark, gritty, spooky. Here, colorful, bright, happy. Nothing that makes you hold your breath and say, oh no, I have to go in there, don't I?
If I'm playing and whatever action game and so on. I'm playing it because it's damn fun just repeating this gameplay over and over. But in a horror game, it's like, shit, I am frightened now. It's not pleasant being in this situation for a longer duration. So you constantly have to think about ways for the player to, well, if you just push forward, it's still an exciting experience.
So to take an earlier situation, we'll look at Garten 1 with Opilabird again. And this time, I want you to imagine, what if you treated that encounter with Opila like the Water Lurker? Or implement that first moment in Silent Hill. One moment you can see, and everything is brightly lit, and then the next moment the lights flicker, and Opila is moving around. Your goal in horror and horror games, first and foremost, is to scare the player. Name one thing that we're supposed to be scared of, or unsettled by in these games. Because I have a pile of examples of people just laughing, people not getting it, and others just having a good time. Outside of Dawko's overreactions to everything that make me see him fake as fuck, and random stuff gaming getting jump scared because watching someone snap their neck at every loud noise is popular, almost no one was scared by anything. I highly recommend reading this blog and watching these interviews in the very limited spare time that I know you gentlemen have. I think it would be very beneficial. And with that, this marks the end of the horror section. Now we can finally talk about chapter fucking 7. Which I am so happy about because it makes very noticeable improvements. However, there are still critiques that need to be made. First, we need to make a correction to the story because Syringian actually gives us some context. There is a wave of cases, not sure if they're the first wave or just a wave, but there is a wave of cases. The scientists said, fuck this, threw them all down here and made a new batch. The old wave, I am guessing, included Dadadu, Duncelia, Syringian, Bittergiggle, whoever the fucking anteater is, and whoever this blue fuck is. But they kept Syringian around because he was useful and he got really familiar with Javanium. Then the next wave came around, which, again, guessing, was the main cast of above along with the failures. Banban's gang, Toadster, Nabnab, Celine, and then Uthman got the letter and threw out Toadster, Celine, and Nabnab. Also, apparently Nabnab was a huge problem? But speaking of Bittergiggle, if you haven't played or seen 7, too fucking bad, this is a critique. I swear to God, this scene was perfect. That's exactly what I'm talking about. If you bring this guy back to life, you made a good decision by killing him. That is exactly what I am talking about. That shows stakes, that makes you feel something, it grounds the player. I mean it. Don't bring him back. Gameplay, something I can say definitively, was also improved. And I can show how I know that. In just about all of the rest of my playthroughs, the number of cuts that I had to make due to dead space, and by that I mean moments where literally nothing was happening, like walking down an absurdly long hallway or traveling on the monorails or lifts. Needlessly time-consuming things. The amount of cuts that I had to make because of that was wild to me. In this game, there was very little dead space that I had to cut. Things were happening all the time, and it was moving pretty quickly. Now that said, it's not all sunshine and rainbows. We'll go back to the player autonomy thing that we were talking about before. I think I want to scoop past Callista and just start the mission without talking to her. Well, sweet Jesus, I can do that. I don't want to talk to Piero again. I think I'll just shoot the fucking door so he walks away. Gotcha. I think I want to use the key card and open the door like I'm supposed to be able to without triggering the monster falling down. Oh, I can't do that. Well, why not? I have the key card
it goes to this door, I think I should be able to just open the door with the key card. Once again, kind of breaks that immersion that we need. If we think we should be able to open the door once we get the key card, then you should probably let us open the door when we get the key card. If you're not going to let us do that, you need to give us a reason why. Because not everyone is going to go towards the sound. Some might want to run away. Now, we get to talk about the horror elements, and holy shit, this was a significant step up. You got bodies hanging from meat hooks and unhinged surgeon things staring at you? Fuck yes! But I do have to ask, how much inspiration did you take from Resident Evil? Because this one is a little on the nose. Now, it's okay to take inspiration from other things, but you need to work a bit to adapt it into your own thing. And while, yes, the situations and contexts are different here, anyone who played or saw Resident Evil 8 can immediately pick up on what this is taking inspiration from. Now, that said, you know, I think Gamer Me actually said it best this time.
You have the first section, which is the castle, which is the giant fucking tall lady. And then the second section, a lot of people cite that particular section as the scariest part of that game. And it's because it has a very horrified version. I'll see if I can show you. Version of a fetus. This is your first encounter with the baby in that game. That's the name of the monster, as the gamers call it.
Wow.
Yeah, so like I said, I have about 100 hours in that game. I am very familiar with this section and that particular boss of that game. I think this, the one that we just saw right now, I think this works a lot better, and I'll tell you why. One of the biggest problems with that section of the game stems from playing it more than once. Because once you play it multiple times, you quickly start to notice that the fucking baby is more linear than walking in a straight fucking line. It has a fucking set path, and it despawns in the middle of the level. Once you figure out that the only thing that you have to do is hide in a locker until it despawns, that's it. There's nothing else to the level except for the fucking puzzle shit, which doesn't change this. This piece of shit in this game was chasing me the entire fucking time. It got fucking close to me.
Yeah, you turned it was on top of you.
It got uncomfortably close. And like the fucking model in that lighting, I thought it was fucking perfect. That is like legitimate uncanny valley shit, because it clearly has a face, but it does not look right.
And then as you proceed, you don't know what's going to happen next. So now there's tension, and it's appropriate. Good job! Now, in my pursuit of being helpful, I need to go ahead and show some things that I think need to be fixed. And unlike some people, I don't have a problem with going back and recording the gameplay again just to show what I'm talking about. Here at Bitter Giggle's chase scene, I don't know what you guys did for this window, but you can see the number of times I had difficulty getting out of it when I really think I should have gotten out of it the first time. I think the object borders need to be widened so people can actually escape. Also, during Bitter Giggle's chase at the end, he can get you when he's on the other side of the wall. His hitbox needs to be reduced so that doesn't happen. It's okay for it to be difficult, but players need a fair chance, because the frustration of the player is not the goal of horror. And by the way, side note, game theory?
So, instead of trying to solve the lore like we typically would, I wanted to take a different approach. Because ever since this franchise first began, there's one aspect of Banban's world building that I haven't been able to stop thinking about. A cornerstone of Banban's entire premise that has been largely left ignored. Givanium, the green goop that has helped bring all of these mascots to life in the first place. Despite how important its mere existence is to all the events that have happened in this world, we still don't really know a whole bunch about what it really is. In this latest game, Syringian, the new red character with multiple arms and surgical tools, he seems to know a lot about Givanium, and we get a lot of notes telling us that he's worked with the stuff, but he's also keeping his cards close to his chest, telling us that he can't say anything because that information is classified.
The scepter was first given to the Queen as some meaningless prop, to help her settle better into her role, you know? All those extra features, like being able to take control of the brain component of those around you, is the work of a very talented surgeon and technician who is too humble to name himself. When the heart-shaped end of the scepter touches a Givanium-based body, the scepter acts as a vessel and transfers and prints a genetic code of the scepter holder into the receiver's brain component. This allows these bodies to receive commands only from whoever takes control of it. Now, we don't all have a transferable genetic code, but Sir Dadadu and the Queen do. Now, wait, this is confidential information. I cannot tell you any more.
Syringian wasn't talking about Givanium there. He was talking about the scepter. If you want to replace Matt, you need to do better. That is actually a basic fucking detail. Also, wasted opportunity here. Absolutely should have said never dance with the devil. Come on now. Overall, Chapter 7 was a very significant step up. It improved on a lot of the things that I talked about. The drone was improved slightly by adding to the mechanic. Still can't pause the game, but it's still an improvement. And overall, it is easily the best installment of the series. They've shown improvements with each game. They have shown that they were getting better with each game. And this was by far the biggest leap in improvement. So I hope that continues. Voice acting! We're gonna tackle this real quick. I can't be too mean about the voice acting. It can be very hard, especially if you're not used to speaking in a microphone. Because you're talking in an empty room, in a microphone with a scenario that's just made up. If the scene calls for anger, you need to yell, like actually fucking yell. If it's sad, you need to sound sad. If it's tense, you have to be tense. And if you're not used to doing that, just on command, and it's not something that you can comfortably do, yeah, it's fucking weird. I know it took me forever to finally relax and start speaking with my actual voice, what you're hearing right now, and to start yelling and changing my tone and delivery and everything. It took fucking years. Here, an example.
When Arjack took the game down.
Why? Now, you probably couldn't tell, but I'm not a loud person. Do you understand how long it took me to, 1, learn what I need to do to yell in a microphone and have it sound correct, and 2, actually be comfortable enough to do it? And even then, it's still awkward as hell sometimes, because normally I record these at night. People are sleeping. I have neighbors, and I'm just yelling really at myself because it's just me in this room. And before that, like I said, it took me years to start speaking in the tone that you hear now. Go back in my older videos and you'll hear I do not sound the same, and that's only minorly to do with the microphone. It took me a long time and a lot of practice of just actually doing it. And I don't do this every day. Here we are, 10 years. And I'm only just recently able to be more natural because I'm finally comfortable behind this fucking thing. These guys were pumping these games out in months. And if English isn't your first language, that's another barrier. So I can't hit the brothers themselves on the voice acting too hard, especially because these guys are indie developers. You're probably going to be very hard pressed to find professional voice acting levels of quality for indie titles. That said, all of the other voice actors I thought was fine. Some did better than others. Whoever did the Jester was great. The Queen and Toadster were alright. Bambolina was okay. She's another one that I think doesn't do it too much. And I know some of y'all are waiting for me to get to the voice acting in Chapter 7. You know, the guy that did The Witness, I think he was okay. I don't recognize him, so I can't really tell. Syringian, great. Don't recognize any of the foreign speakers because, you know, obviously. And yeah, I think that's pretty much it. Fine. The bartender voiced by this channel's favorite person. Yeah.
I can't be seen talking to you. Didn't you read the signs? Take your business elsewhere. Ugh, your flesh disgusts me.
And just like this game series, I'll give him fair critique too, as I've done before. I think overall he did fine, but the tone didn't match the first few lines, and maybe that's because I'm reading them a little bit differently. But to me, the lines, "So you're what the mayor warned us about, you're even more disgusting in reality. Take your business elsewhere, your flesh disgusts me." That reads as, perhaps obviously, something that is deeply disgusted by the sight of a human. And I think we can all kind of understand what disgust in someone's voice sounds like. I think his tone was a little too casual for the disgust vibe. But like I said, I think he did fine. I don't really knock anyone for voice acting because it's hard. Harder than it seems. A lot of people tend to think it's just reading the words in front of you and your voice will automatically do all the work for you, which is not how it works. So I think if you are going to criticize voice acting, you need to understand how difficult it actually is. Because it's not easy. And I want to make absolutely sure that I am being crystal clear that I am not saying that it is. Anyway, it's a nice little nod to let him voice a little bit in the game. It shows that everything's cool between them. I still won't talk to him. Maybe. I don't know. I don't really stay mad too long. It's important to keep in mind that this kind of thing with these mascot games, riding the coattails, as Demuted put it. A game riding off of the success of another game, that isn't something that's unique to mascot horror games. I don't know how many people here remember, but I remember when Slender was the horror game that everyone was talking about. It saw a very similar thing. First, Slender the 8 Pages, the OG game, dropped. Then you saw, I believe, the Slenderman's Shadow games, so Sanatorium, Hospice, Elementary, Mansion, Claustrophobia, 7th Street, Prison, Carnival, and Christmas Special. And that very much so was an example of someone capitalizing off of the original game's success, and it was pretty scummy the way they did it. They took the IP and ripped it off by making all of those games, and they didn't once credit the developer of the original game. If you look at a lot of Five Nights at Freddy's fan games, you'll see the little blurb of something along the lines of, "This game was inspired by Scott Cawthon's game," or "He created FNAF, this is a fan game," etc, etc. Yeah, those games didn't have that when they were coming out. I remember hearing about the developer of the original game being pretty mad about that. But after those, you got Slender's Woods, Slender Haunt, Slender the 9 Pages, Slender Space, Slender the Remake, and Slender the Arrival. Dude, 2012 was fucking crazy. But the point is that the idea of writing success is not new, and certainly not specific to mascot horror or Garten of Banban, which is probably another reason why I didn't see an issue with that. And on the subject of inspiration, I'm actually seeing more similarities between this series and Five Nights at Freddy's rather than Poppy Playtime. For the first 4 games, there aren't too many differences between the actual gameplay, and it's a lot of repeated mechanics. It can be debated which one was more obvious. I think they're both pretty equal. Now, this next part isn't a critique on part of the games, but it's something that I want to throw in here because I saw this video, and the guy sounds like he knows what he's talking about, and he says something super interesting here. Let's have a listen.
So the way that I look at this right now is this doesn't make sense. We live in a time of digital distribution, and the way that I see sales of games is like this. If it's $1, people see it as shovelware. If it's $3, they see it as an arcade game. $5 is a premium arcade game. $10 is an indie game. $20 is a premium indie game. Anything anywhere from 10 to 20 is a premium indie game. $40 is a day game. $60 is AAA. And anything 70 or above is a scam. That's the general way that people feel about games that I've seen so far.
Now I want us all to remember the people that were complaining about Garten 2 being priced at $5. That is all. We need to talk about this for a minute. I 100% understand that these games were probably not meant to be played more than once. But we still need to talk about it, because just because you don't intend for a game to be played more than once, it doesn't mean that people just won't. And these games completely fall apart once you play them more than once and start playing. We talked about the freedom of choice thing already, and that really only comes into effect on repeated playthroughs, but it's still worth talking about. If people might think that they should be able to just open the door once they get the keycard, then they should probably be able to just open the fucking door. Here in Garten 6, if you play it more than once, you will probably eventually stumble on the realization that nothing will actually happen if you just stand still when Toadster goes to turn the lights on. That's more immersion breaking stuff. If you want an idea of just how wild indie development can get, I'll direct you to a channel that I mentioned in the first video. Manaxa? Fucking whatever. And encourage you to watch his video on 5 Nights at Treasure Island and just listen to how many hands that IP was in. So, overall, I know I said a lot of things, and I know I was super blunt about it. Ferris, Geppo, you guys know that I'm not here to just trash on you and your games. My goal is to try and be as helpful as I can. Not just to you guys, but to others as well, other up-and-coming indie developers, anyone thinking about making a game in the horror genre. So if there's something that I wasn't clear on, or that you think I'm wrong about, don't hesitate to tell me, please. And as I said before, highly recommend that you listen to this interview, this particular one with Grip. I think you guys might find that his experiences in his early years to be familiar. If you have an hour to spare, listen to it. In conclusion, do I supremely dislike the games? Do I hate these games so much that I'll never play them again? No, absolutely not. Even if I don't come back to these games later down the line, I don't hate them. I don't even dislike them. I had a pretty fun time overall. And there were really only a few spots that I really disagreed with, just like any game that I play. Just because I talk about and criticize games doesn't automatically mean that I don't like them. There is a huge difference between me liking a game and me saying that a game is bad. I have said that Far Cry 5, Resident Evil 7 and 8, and Skyrim were bad games, but I still like them. I like Five Nights at Freddy's, and I'll praise them on things that they do well, but I don't think that they're good games. And I will always be more lenient with indie developers, for reasons that I think should be obvious. Are these games bad? Objectively, yes. And especially on the horror aspect because of everything that we talked about today, with 3 being the absolute weakest. Do I think they're the worst? No. I've seen worse. Far worse. They have charm, but I can't call them good. 6, it starts to improve a bit, but still not there yet. 7 has the biggest jump in terms of improvement, showing that they are getting better. The biggest thing for me, and honestly for some people it's the only thing that really matters, is that these games are completable experiences, from beginning to end, day one, with fairly minimal bugs from what I can tell. On top of that, they get patched really fucking quickly. Just based on that metric alone, they're leagues above AAA games these days. These days, big companies will just lie about what they're doing, what they're using. Their promises almost never come true. They release games in unplayable states. Day one launches are bugged beyond belief. and some of them will try to change the fucking terms of playing the game randomly, or employ this insanely stupid pay-to-win bullshit, on top of hiking the prices up to ridiculous degrees. Once again, showing why indie games are considered better than AAA right now. It was a rocky start, but they seem to be heading in the right direction now, and I hope they only go up from here. And another big thing for me, and ultimately what I really care about the most, is that they are getting better. They are improving, and as long as they continue to improve, I will be here for it. But until the next game, that's all I got for Garten of Banban. Thank you all so much for getting to the end here. I know I talked for a very long fucking time, but man, there was a lot to talk about. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you. If you don't want to hear what I've got coming up next for the channel, you can go ahead, head on out. I will see you later. For the rest of you, I'm still putting in work on my Resident Evil critique, and now that Garten of Banban has concluded for me, I can get back to focusing on that. And if y'all thought this was big, let me show you the fucking roadmap that I have. Here you go. Look at that fucking behemoth. That's not gonna get done anytime soon, I can tell you that. Fuck me. Then I have all the fanfiction stuff that I mentioned before. I had a conversation with a user/writer, and well, it was certainly something. Then I wanted to go into the topic of self-insert original characters. All of these are better than they sound, I swear. And I also have some short-ish videos that may or may not even be made to begin with, I haven't decided. And I'm toying with the idea of looking at Starfield. I suppose I could look at Poppy Play. No! Resident Evil first. I got distracted too many fucking times already. As for the second channel, we have to finish Star Fox Adventures. But you know, after talking about puzzles in this critique, I kind of want to play some puzzle games now, so maybe we'll do that. I do have some interesting ones. And lastly, Ferris, Geppo, if you guys are still watching, I like you guys. I like your games. You two know this. But I'm gonna play something else now. This has taken up so much of my time. I need a break. Alright, that's all I got. Thank you all once again, and I will see you later.